The following is a presentation of the BellyUpSports Media Network.
The ball sends it over to Edward Robles. Go! Insert name FC! Let's go! Insert name FC! What is up, everybody? My name is Hector Flores, host of the Insert Name FC podcast, a member of the BellyUpSports Media Network. You can find us on all things podcasting, Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast fix, you will find us there. Insert Name FC, straightforward. You can find clips of our recordings, and also the audio version is also available on YouTube at Insert Name FC. And something that we do a little bit different now is that we don't do a full complete episode in a video form. What we do is we take clips, we break down what's recorded on these episodes, and we put that in a video version. Just another way so we can grow out our YouTube channel as well. Just makes things a little plus it just gives us some content, so easier to digest, I guess, in some sense. But and also follow us on social media at Instagram and at Twitter, also known as now X, at Insert Name FC on both those platforms. And check us out on TikTok at insert.name.fc. You'll find video clips from these episodes that we record on there as well. So just another way that you can see what this podcast is capable of. But yeah, so this episode, it's a pretty busy week. We have Kelcey from High Low Sports to come on and talk overreactions and headlines, and of course help me recap the finals of all the European competitions. So Europa Conference League, Europa League, and Champions League, of course, obviously. If you guys see the video versions of this podcast, the video clips, you'll see that I'm rocking my Real Madrid kit. Obviously, I'm very happy. Real Madrid, congratulations on their 15th Champions League title. The news has been official that Mbappe will be joining Real Madrid this season after the Euro, so he'll be coming in and becoming their newest addition to this team. So you win the Champions League, and then a few days later, you get one of the best players in the world in Kylian Mbappe. And we will be that will be discussed. It is my overreaction, so just so you guys have a heads up. But yeah, so overreactions, headlines, Champions League, European competition recaps, players of the week. Give you guys some games to look forward to this coming weekend. We are now hitting the international break, so that is what is there to be seen. And yeah, so that is going to be the episode. So can't wait for you guys to listen to it. And we're going to go ahead and take a break. And then we'll go right into our overreactions and headlines with Kelcey of High Low Sports. Hey guys, this is Hector from the Insert Name FC podcast, here to tell you guys about Canadips. It is a great tasting, superior alternative to traditional dip using CBD in a way that is radical, enjoyable, and effective. It comes in 5 core flavors: wintergreen, mint, citrus, mango, and American spice. Canadip CBD is the new evolution in dip, allowing guys to enjoy great, long-lasting taste without the downsides. If you guys want to go ahead and try them out, use the code BellyUp20 at CanadipCBD.com. Once again, BellyUp20 at CanadipCBD.com, and you'll get yourself 20% off your purchase. Thank you again for Canadips for being a great partner of BellyUpSports.
All right, guys. Like I said in the introductions, that we have a special guest with us. That is Kelcey of High Low Sports, and a bunch of other things as well, man. Kelcey, man. Feels like an eternity since I last had you on here. Anything new with you, man?
You know, nothing new. More work, more fun, more podcasting. It feels like every time you turn around, I feel like I'm doing something new. But no, man, it's same old. Just a little excited after some Champions League wildness this last weekend. So
Yeah, definitely.
Altogether pretty
Obviously
fun.
still in celebration mode myself. But yeah, what a final, and we'll definitely talk about that. Obviously, we're gonna recap later on in this episode, all three of the European competitions. But before we get to that, we got headlines and overreactions. So, Kelcey, you're here. Do you have a overreaction for this past weekend of footy?
Well, I mean, I think the obvious one here being Danny Carvajal might be the best header of the ball ever, and somehow is being touted as the best player ever. I've never best player in Champions League history ever. I'm still not sure about that one, but yeah, overreaction is people need to calm down on Danny Carvajal because that is a little bit too much. But hey, impressive game from him nonetheless. But if you want a real overreaction, I'm going to say that Marco Reus messed up by never leaving Borussia Dortmund.
Oh man, I mean, I want to give him some props, like at least a little bit for staying loyal to Dortmund for all these years, man. But maybe if it was Bayern Munich, it could have been a different story for Marco Reus this Champions League final. But obviously, that didn't happen, and had they go against a team that is literally undefeated in Champions League finals. But yeah, no, man, I felt so bad for Marco Reus, man. I kind of how I got to previewing the Champions League final for this one. As much as I love the streak, right? I love that Real Madrid has this undefeated streak in Champions League finals. It's almost like the Undertaker, except everyone hates you. But then there's Marco Reus, right? And I mean, Borussia Dortmund in general, this is like an amazing underdog story. I mean, they had to go toe-to-toe with Atletico Madrid and won, and then having to go up against PSG, having to go up against all the teams that they had to get to make it to the final. And it just felt like they just got better and better in the Champions League. Let's not talk about Bundesliga, but in the Champions League, they were, they just looked like a different team. Very much so, because they were solid defensively in Champions League, whereas in Bundesliga is a whole other story. But yeah, you were like, I honestly was saying kind of, I wouldn't have been mad if Borussia Dortmund would have won, because I don't. Borussia Dortmund is probably one of the few teams that I think that there's no haters on Borussia Dortmund, unless you're a Bayern Munich fan. But like, there's no reason to hate this team. And then Marco Reus, obviously great story. And I wanted him to get the payoff, right? The payoff of being so loyal to this club. And I know he played with Mönchengladbach at one point. But I mean, let's be honest. When we think of Reus, we think of Dortmund. Maybe he wins one with the Galaxy. I don't know. I can't tell you. But yeah, I really want, and it's also because like everything is just so unfortunate for him, right? Should have been part of that Germany World Cup squad. Got injured. Didn't get to win the World Cup with Germany, even though I believe they still gave him a medal. I don't think he necessarily like flaunts it because he didn't play in it. All his best friends left to Bayern Munich. Yeah. It's just like Marco Reus is just it's hard not to root for the guy. Matt has a great story, and like I said, we'll talk about Champions League when we get there. But yeah, I was really, that was probably like the one time I will say, like, if Real Madrid were to have lost the Champions League final, I wouldn't have been mad if it was against Borussia Dortmund. I mean, I probably still would have been mad, but I mean, like, it's like kind of like a bittersweet, I guess you could say, if Borussia Dortmund would have won.
Yeah, I mean, look, Dortmund getting there to begin with, like you said, it's a surprise. I think everybody outside of the Dortmund outfit did not expect them to be in the finals, did not expect them to have as good of a first half in that finals as they did. I mean, really, you look at that impressive play they had in the first half. If it's not for an inch here and an inch there, that team probably goes up 2-0 at half, which is a completely shocking storyline to consider. And you mentioned Marco Reus. Yeah, I do say that was an overreaction, being he should have left. And it's because an overreaction for a reason, obviously. I am a big Marco Reus fan. I do believe, like, when you look at the Dortmund history in the last 11 years he's been there, probably some of the best times in recent memory for Dortmund. Obviously, older memory. Everybody has an older memory of Dortmund. But in recent memory, the last 11 years, you have Lewandowski, him, Hummels the first time around, Subotic, and I'm missing one, and for the life of me, I can't remember who the fifth one is.
Mario
But
Götze.
there you go, Mario Götze. And between those five, you had a young powerhouse 11 years ago. 4 of those 5 left. They all came back. One of them came back, at least in Mats Hummels. Mario Götze eventually came back as well. But yeah, I mean, it's a sad story. Injuries and just coaches leaving for better pastures, I think, is a big reason why Dortmund never had that payoff, why Marco Reus never had that payoff. And it's sad to see. You hate to see it for him. There's a few other guys out there that you're like, oh, well, depending on people's opinions on Mats Hummels, maybe he gets the same conversation. I don't really care as much, but yeah, I mean, for Marco Reus, that it is sad to see. Especially, it was good to see him get on the field, but you at the same time, you hate to see him lose. When he finally gets back to that pinnacle, it's been 10 years since they were there last. I mean, it's great to see him there, but it was sad to see him go that way.
Yeah, it's true. So I mean, I totally agree with you. We'll see what happens. I know the heavy rumor right now is that he's going to LA Galaxy. I believe LA Galaxy has agreed on a price tag for the discovery rights from Charlotte, and yeah, I know it's so stupid to say that. Man. But LA Galaxy is. I actually, as a matter of fact, LA Galaxy was at the Champions League final to discuss with Marco Reus of a potential contract to bring him over to the MLS. So maybe Edward becomes a LA Galaxy fan. I have no idea at this point. But Marco Reus is Edward's guy. So, or I don't know. Maybe I don't know. Edward has a lot of guys. Pause.
I mean, did he go back to Lewandowski again yet?
Well, we still got to see where he ends up going. But yeah, that's probably also another one to talk about. But yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know what's gonna happen to Edward. But yeah. So my overreaction, man. Sticking with Real Madrid, I guess I guess this is gonna be the Real Madrid episode in some sense. But apparently it's happening. If Fabrizio Romano has, he's the Woj of the soccer community. He stated it that in the coming days, Real Madrid's going to make it official, and Kylian Mbappe will be officially a Madrista. It took I don't know how many years at this point. I don't even know if I want Mbappe now, to be brutally honest. Because, look, I don't know if it's just Jose also kind of putting things in my head, and also my hesitancy too, now that I think about it. But I just don't know if he's a fit to Real Madrid now. If that makes any sense, and I'm sure Kelcey is it's fucking Kylian Mbappe.
I get it though. I actually get what you're saying. Let me be. Go ahead.
I should probably also I know I might make this the clip. I know a bunch of Madridistas are going to come on and call me a Barca fan for some weird reason, even though I'm literally wearing the fucking kit. But it's just that, and it's not. And I mean, I praise Kylian Mbappe. I've said a lot of good things about Kylian Mbappe. I've made a ton of clips of this whole ordeal with PSG and Real Madrid. And like I said, I won't believe it until I finally see him holding that Real Madrid jersey, holding that, making it all official and everything. That's when I'll finally believe it. But it seems like more than likely it's going to happen for Kylian Mbappe. My only concern is that where is he going to play? And obviously everyone's like, well, no shit, striker. Which, that's the thing I'm worried about. I don't know if he really is a 9, if that makes any sense to anybody. But because, if you really think about it, he's more of a creative player. I mean, he could do it. He can honestly do it all. But when it comes to him being able to be creative on the wing, he seems to be best suited in that role. And obviously the big talk was going to be who's going to be the odd man out on the wings, because obviously Vinicius Jr., which that guy's going to be untouchable. I'm pretty confident to say that he's probably going to win the Ballon d'Or this upcoming one. Maybe a hot take, maybe not so much a hot take. Definitely should. Even despite what happens with Copa America, I think he's going to be the front runner for the Ballon d'Or. And then Rodrigo, who made it very clear he ain't going nowhere. He's heard the Man City rumors. He said, nah, I'm staying here in Real Madrid. That could also be the kiss of death. I don't know. I'm being hopeful for my adopted son. But I mean, who do you move around in that? Because I mean, Vinny's staying on the left side. I feel that that's a safe bet. Rodrigo, I can see him be the odd man out. But I mean, he hasn't done anything to say otherwise to take him out of the right wing spot either.
He hasn't?
How do you feel?
On the field, you're right. On the field, he has not. Off the field, he definitely had some interesting words this last week.
That's true. But obviously the whole plan this whole time has been for Kylian Mbappe is to be the 9, right? To be the heir apparent to Karim Benzema. That's always been at least the idea of Real Madrid. But now that I saw him essentially kind of have complaints of playing the 9 spot, we saw that he wanted to be on the wing instead of Neymar. When you remember when they had, when PSG had their trying. Mind you, it was also immensely checked out Lionel Messi. So I know people want to complain about that trying a bit. Neymar is Neymar. Mbappe apparently felt like he was out of position, and Lionel Messi kind of just didn't want to be there. So take that with a grain of salt. But it seemed that he doesn't like playing that 9 spot. But is it because PSG was a different story and this is Real Madrid and he'll do whatever Carlo Ancelotti tells him to do? Like, that's where I'm worried about. And I don't know. I don't necessarily think he will be. I think he'll be happy that he's in Real Madrid. Clearly, he's going to be happy with being at Real Madrid. And I'm sure the team is going to teach him how to fall in line with the Madridista way. But my worry is just, where is he going to play? If he plays the 9, can he play the 9 in the way that Carlo Ancelotti is going to want him to play it?
Yeah. It's interesting, though, because I don't think Real Madrid system necessarily has a 9 in a lot of ways. Their 9 is whoever's in the box at the last pass. Like, that seems to be their number 9. It's Jude Bellingham, it's Rodrigo, it's Vinny Jr. Like, take your pick. They're all in the box there for the final pass at different points in time, but they attack from so many different weird angles. It would allow somebody like Mbappe to come in and fit that system. It's honestly, what your concern is the exact reason why I did not want Kylian Mbappe to go to Liverpool, because Liverpool, I think, would try to force him into that number 9 role. And I don't think he's a true number 9 in the sense, as much as he's a number 9 that likes to pick up the ball deep, turn, face an opponent, and attack them, because that's his best abilities. I mean, obviously, running at opponents, running past opponents for sure, and then finishing after that move is where he's best at. But interchanging with players, being able to work off somebody is where he works his absolute magic. And I think that's okay in Madrid system, which ironically, you mentioned, Madrid fans coming on and calling, Barcelona guy. Ironically, the current Madrid system might be more Barcelona-like than they'd like to admit, in the fact that everybody beyond what was Toni Kroos, whoever fills that role now, but everybody forward really interchanged their own positions in a lot of ways, even to the fact where on defense, Jude Bellingham's dropping back and playing what is essentially a left mid. So I think Mbappe can fit in there. And I even think to some point it's like he's replacing Rodrigo, and Rodrigo goes and slides into that middle 3 area with Camavinga, Tchouaméni, and probably him as in the 3rd, or Modric, depending on if Modric comes back. I don't think he is.
He is. He actually extended.
Oh, wow, he is. Oh, that's shocking. 39 years old playing for Real Madrid. That's
that man has found the fountain of youth. That's in his closet. And you know what? I'm not mad that he's not telling anybody. Like,
hey, he hasn't popped a positive test yet, so that's the important thing here.
That's true.
Keep doing what you're doing. But no, to be fair to you, I do get what you're saying with Mbappe. There is a little concern for his fit, as there is with any superstar player coming into a superstar team like Madrid. You always have that concern. The one thing I will say about Madrid, and with Carlo Ancelotti, obviously nicknamed the Don, we heard it all during the celebration Saturday night, last Saturday when they lifted the trophy. He's a guy that really, as Jamie Carragher said, he gives minimal expectations to players other than, hey, go out there and play like you know how to play. So that might work out to be the best for Mbappe. But at the same time, you never know. Things happen. Weird personality mixes, are always a problem. But Madrid, as far as being able to handle that historically, not as concerned as it would be if he had gone to Liverpool in my case. But I do think, yeah, there's definitely, I can see where the concern is. I don't see it. I don't personally think it will be that bad, but you do never know in sports.
I mean, you mentioned the at least the tactics of Ancelotti, which I agree. Because I remember when I'm thinking more so of the Benzema role, because that essentially would be what Mbappe should be playing.
What is a French striker? I mean, really?
Yeah,
Thierry Henry started it, and then now fast forward, you mentioned Benzema.
And I mean, Karim Benzema didn't necessarily always stay up front. Like I've seen him veer off to the wing. I've seen him, even come back and defend. So I mean, and obviously I'm not saying that Mbappe's going to go back and defend, and Benzema is just a different kind of player when he was at Madrid. And I'll add to you, that's a whole other story. But I think that when you say that, and obviously Carlo Ancelotti, who is a lot about letting the players trust their instincts, which has worked out very tremendously for them, obviously this season, and believing guys. I mean, you have Joselu, who was a cheap loan, and has come up big for Real Madrid. Came up very big many times for Real Madrid. And I mean, I think that like I said, it's probably going to also be the mentality that comes with being a Real Madrid player. Obviously the history, the standard. And I know I'm saying a lot of things that other clubs also have. Don't think I'm being the delusional Madridista by any means, but it's just a different team, especially when their identity is Champions League. Like not many. Real Madrid has more Champions Leagues than the entire EPL does. So I mean, like
they have more Champions League than twice as many Champions Leagues as the next closest player or team does.
Yeah, so it is insane, but I do think that like the other concern is obviously like Real Madrid has put so much work into getting this deal done. This goes all the way back like 3 summers ago now, of them trying to get Mbappe over to Real Madrid and PSG doing as whatever they can do to keep the man. And like I said, they should have sold them when they had the chance because, obviously all the drama the drama that PSG created, not necessarily Mbappe created, but what PSG created where they were benching him, which I don't know. He's still getting called up by the French national team, so he's still going to get his playing time. So I don't know what PSG was hoping to gain from it, but they still played him in crucial moments. But I don't know. The PSG, like, they shot themselves in the foot with the way they handled the Mbappe situation, the way they handled the Neymar situation, the way they handled the Messi situation. I mean, insert player name, they didn't handle it very well. But yeah, I mean, and most people probably hate PSG anyway, so I'm sure they're happy for that. But yeah, so I'm just worried because, like, obviously all this hassle has came from trying to get Mbappe over here, and there's going to be immediate pressure for him, right? And I mean, that happens with any big signing for Real Madrid, especially now from the way Jude Bellingham had his debut here. Like, you got to follow that up now. Which I'm sure Mbappe is capable of, but like now that's the expectation. Like, not only is it that you have to follow up what Jude Bellingham did on his first year, especially a team coming off of a Champions League, coming off of a double, or apparently a treble. For apparently some people also count Spanish Super Cups. I apologize.
Club World Cup's coming up. You never know. Maybe it's going to be a quad.
I apologize to all the Spanish Super Cup stands.
Didn't they get the trophy over in the Arab League, the Super League, whatever they call that?
The Spanish Super Cup.
Oh, is that what they called it? Is the Spanish Super Cup? Okay.
Yeah, they just made it into a 4-team tournament where they play in Saudi Arabia. It's not a preseason tournament anymore. It's now we'll play this in January for some weird reason tournament. While we're just gonna start Copa del Rey, so
nobody ever called him smart.
I don't make the rules.
No, it's funny though. I do think Mbappe might have less pressure because Madrid pulled off the Champions League title. And what I mean by that is if they had fallen short, everybody in the offseason would probably be saying, hey, we have our missing piece now. We have the piece that'll get us to the finals and get us another trophy. And now instead, they're just like, well, we set a standard last year. Now you just have to fit in. It's almost a different way to look at it, and it might be the way that it works better for Mbappe. Maybe he doesn't need that extra pressure like we've seen with so many different players over the years come in, visit big expectations, and then
I think the pressure is a lot alleviating versus the pressure he had at PSG.
Yeah, I mean, you're not the only player there. Yeah, that's the best thing, and that's something that even you go back to the days of Los Galacticos and Beckham and Ronaldo and that entire squad, and you had Beckham come out and say, honestly, once I got involved with the team, it was just like everybody knew what they were doing, and all I had to do was do me, and it was the best team I ever played for. It's like when you have greats that have said that in the past, and now you compare that to what they have currently, while position by position, maybe not as great for what they are as a squad from top to bottom with the management they have. I mean, it's hard to beat. It's hard to beat to go into a better situation if you're a player, and especially a player like Mbappe, where you've been to the pinnacles of everything. You just haven't won anything yet.
Yeah, exactly. So
that's tough.
You definitely alleviated some of my concerns, but we'll see what happens come the day it's official. But like I said, the only reason why I'm talking about it now is because Fabrizio Romano, like I said, he's the Woj of soccer. So if he says it, more than likely it's going to happen. So that's the only reason why. But that's overreactions. All right, heading into headlines. So Jose Mourinho, everybody's initially favorite, then everyone hates him afterwards, coach, has found a new job after being released by Roma, which ended up getting into a better position after they fired him, ironically. But now he is going to the Turkish Super League, and he will be managing Fenerbahce over there.
I don't know what to do with that, man. I feel like, they talk about the MLS being a retirement league, which I think is kind of backwards for where it is actually now. I look at the Turkish Super League as the retirement league nowadays. There's not a lot of players coming from the Super League to expand their careers. There's a lot of players going to the Super League to then just retire into oblivion because they get paid a whole lot of money. And I'm gonna be honest, I don't think for coaches it's going to be much different.
You are absolutely right about that, because I don't know how many times whenever, and this is back in not that Galatasaray and Fenerbahce and Beşiktaş and or Istanbul is kind of still working on that part, but those three, and I think those are the three giants anyways. Yeah. But whenever they're competing in the Champions League match, and whenever we're watching these games, and I just look, oh, there's that guy. I didn't know he was still playing.
Yeah, it's funny because I think
Wesley Sneijder at one point played for Galatasaray.
Wesley Sneijder. Don't forget Nuri Sahin. Nuri Sahin might be the last player I think went the opposite way. Went from Turkey to a big club to succeed, and then was like, all right, I'm done with this. I'm going back to Turkey.
Yeah, it's the Turkish league. I mean, the only reason why I know Fenerbahce to some extent is because Roberto Carlos. That's where he went after his time at Real Madrid. So, and obviously he had that godly, corner kick that he put in the back of the net. The dude was just that was a different type of fullback.
Didn't Van Persie end up at Galatasaray? The end of his career.
I thought he went back to his boyhood club in Netherlands.
See, this is the problem. Is I honestly couldn't even tell you half the players that ended up there because I feel like all of them eventually made a stop there for a year.
Yeah, but Jose Mourinho, he took the Fenerbahce job. He signed a 2-year deal. I'm sure he'll get fired after 1 year. But I don't know, man. It's kind of weird. This is the thing I'm thinking. Is his tactics kind of getting outdated?
Yes. The simplest of all simple answers. Yes.
I just don't think you can get away being a defensive manager anymore. I mean, Tuchel has gone through the ringer now, and I used to give praise to Tuchel, and I still kind of do. I still kind of want to believe in him, but I mean, Jose Mourinho has been using these same tactics from all the way back to Porto. It won you 2 Champions Leagues, one with Porto and one with Inter Milan, and I mean, You know, we know the trophies you won because you got it tattooed on your arm for some weird reason.
The Confederations Cup.
The greatest tattoo ever. This is what Jose was talking about the content creators here over at what you find at GolzTV. By the way, the very knowledgeable people is just me talking about, you know, just me spending so much time of my life of finding every weird, stupid thing that Jose Mourinho's ever done. The really bad tattoo that he had, and it's because his skin's just really wrinkly, and it's just like at this point it was really too late for him to get a tattoo. That, and then obviously the really awkward marriage proposal that he was forced to watch. That just instilled in my brain. But yeah, Jose Mourinho, bro, though he's here at Fenerbahce. Like, this can go either two ways. Can only go two ways. He's either going to be all bought in with Turkey, which it seems like that's what he's kind of doing, even though he kind of tried to like, no, I haven't signed anything. I never accepted that deal. And then, literally, like maybe the same day, a social media post comes out from Fenerbahce. So,
yeah, no, I mean, okay, I'm gonna go back to your first question here. Is it, the defensive tactics, right? That's the part that's, yes, it's outdated to some degree. And what I mean by that is, if you look at how Real Madrid just won the Champions League, their finals was extraordinarily defensive in the first half. And so you can win with that defensive tactic and the defensive mindset in certain situations, but to run it for the entire season, like what he did to decimate Man United, I feel like that's the best example, is what he did to kind of stymie the bleeding that was Man United season and just kind of float them across the line. That doesn't happen often. You're not going to be able to do that from start to finish for 38 matches and expect to win a league title nowadays, when you have teams in the Premier League getting 100 points in a year and not winning a title. You know, that's, I guess I shouldn't say 100, 99 for Liverpool, for example, while Man City gets 100 points in a year, and that's who wins the title. And on the flip side, you have Real Madrid and Barcelona running away with leagues. You have whoever decides to win the Italian Serie A every other year, which ends up running away with the league because they're scoring goals. You can't just expect you have, one guy leaking out and scoring 20 goals for you like Drogba used to do, and that be enough, because that's not what you can do nowadays. Nowadays, you need dynamic wingers, you need dynamic midfield players. You can't just have, a sitting six and a front eight. You have to have two-way players in both positions now. You have to have the hinge midfielders. You have to have wings that can attack inside, outside, pass, shoot. I mean, Jude Bellingham, I mentioned it earlier, scored a lot of goals this year for Real Madrid, a lot of key goals for Real Madrid, both with his head, his left foot, his right foot, and I believe even one off of his knee or somewhere in that range, thigh, knee area. That's not going to, that doesn't happen in a Jose Mourinho system. Jose Mourinho system puts if he plays two strikers in the box, but I haven't seen him play two strikers in a really long time. And yeah, it's just not good enough anymore. It's kind of sad to see. So I don't know. You hate to see a guy play longer than he needs to, and then get to that point. You really hate to see a really good coach do the same thing, where his tactics are phased out of the game nowadays.
Yeah, and I think the thing is with Jose Mourinho, at least initially it starts well. I think that's always been the common theme. Why when everyone talks about it, it's like, oh man, he's a proven winner. He's won everywhere. He wins a trophy everywhere he goes. Which, I mean, I do agree to that statement. I mean, everywhere he's gone, he has had some sort of, I guess not Tottenham, but he's had some sort of success.
He's stymied the downfall of Tottenham, though.
Yeah, definitely. But can these tactics work in the Turkish Super League though? And the reason why I asked that question though is because honestly, I don't watch any of the Turkish Super League. If I do watch it, it's probably Galatasaray versus Fenerbahce, which, if anything, I forget about how the game was played. I just remember fans storming the field.
It probably works there, to be honest. And by the way, I was wrong about Robin van Persie. He went to Fenerbahce, not Galatasaray.
Okay.
So whoops. Didn't mean to light that.
They
that
go to the
rivalry
Turkish
up
league.
there.
They go to the Turkish league though. So, but I mean, like, so Fenerbahce isn't necessarily a bad team. It's not like they're on the downward spiral. They literally finished second place. They were 3 points behind Galatasaray, who has dominated this league for quite some time now. But I mean, Fenerbahce isn't that far off. So maybe bring his tactics. Maybe he brings some players that he probably won't play, and is he able to be that little extra thing? And mind you, Beşiktaş was prepared to offer him Quaresma as an assistant coach. So for him,
I think he would have taken Quaresma as a player nowadays.
Which that's another guy like, oh yeah, I forgot he was over there. It was so. But with that being said, man, clearly like he must have saw Beşiktaş as like not necessarily an ideal situation for him and chose Fenerbahce for a reason. Can you see Fenerbahce getting the title next year with Jose Mourinho?
And in that league, it's like the Scottish Premier League. If anybody knows anything about the Scottish Premier League, it's run by two teams. Well, historically run by two teams. Obviously, there was a few years where Rangers was in what is equivalent to bankruptcy in America. Consolidation, something like that. Whatever it is. But yeah, so I mean, it doesn't take much. It takes one game against Galatasaray giving up 1 goal instead of 4 goals, and then one game against Beşiktaş where you give up 1 goal instead of 3 goals. Like those 2 games alone, if you can turn those into draws instead of losses, and then you bundle a couple wins that are against teams that you should easily beat, yeah, you can easily go and win a title. But I think the interesting part here is beyond just the league, and this is the way I think that Mourinho is going to be measured, is actually going to be how does Fenerbahce do in the new Champions League setup, with Fenerbahce getting an opportunity to go into the Champions League now with the expansion. What does that mean for them long term with him being in charge now that there's 6 games? That means there is an opportunity there for his tactics to win out in a 6-match series to get his team advanced into a knockout stage.
Matches.
8 matches, sorry. But yeah, I mean, there's a chance there now that he gets the opportunity to get them into a knockout round position. And if I think Fenerbahce can get to the knockout stages for the first time in, oh man, over 2 decades, I believe, maybe early 2000s was the last time they were there. Like I think that's going to be a measure of success for him beyond just anything else, or even a Europa League finals type of appearance, which we all know he can get to. The dude gets to him like Sevilla gets to him. It's just all the time. But yeah, like I think that's going to be a bigger measure. I think for the league, I think it's just a matter of how does Galatasaray respond with their attackers, right? Do they bring in more big guns to play up front, or do they kind of stay status quo because they just won a league? It's all dependent. But yeah, I mean, you never know in a league, but I think the big measure is going to be what they do in Europe.
Yeah, it's a very fair point. And yeah, I mean, what Kelcey mentioned, next year, obviously, Champions League is going to look completely different. One, there's no more groups. It's going to be one giant table. It's the Super League. It's legitimately Super League. It's just it's inclusive. It's inclusive at least.
Fenerbahce gets a chance.
Fenerbahce can actually play in it, and versus the Super League where they don't get an invite. But yeah, so Jose Mourinho is going to probably be the only reason why anybody watches unless you're a fan of the Turkish Super League, obviously not to offend anybody, but if you're someone that's probably has ever watched the Turkish Super League match, you're probably going to watch Fenerbahce just to see how Jose Mourinho performs. I've watched a few matches. Like I said, if it's like Fenerbahce versus Galatasaray or Beşiktaş versus any of the other 2 that I mentioned, I'll probably watch it just to see how the game is played over on Turkey. And I mean, it's not a bad product. I'm not saying that it's terrible or anything like that. It's just that those are just the 3 teams that at least I watch. I mean, if someone can recommend me a Turkish team to watch, maybe I'll give them a shot. But
I forgot one. There is one. It's Trabzonspor or Trabzonspor.
Yeah, Trabzonspor. Yeah, which
they had John Obi Mikel go there.
They did win the league a few years ago. Actually, I remember it was
and Talyaspor, which is where Samuel Eto'o, I believe, went.
That's right. I believe actually, I think Teenage Adibi from Dynamo is actually currently playing there.
Oh, there you go.
So I guess I have a reason to watch them. But we'll see, man. Jose Mourinho and Fenerbahce. And like I said, it could go two ways. Either he fully embraces Turkey or he's going to shit on the league. So
he will straight up Ibrahimovic that league if you're not careful.
he does not hesitate. Maybe we'll have some awkward marriage proposals on that one too. But moving on, man. So Bayern Munich coming off of a down year, and I do that with air quotes. Obviously, if you guys are listening to the audio version, you probably didn't see me do the air quote. The reason why I say I do it like that is because everyone kept saying, "Oh, Bayern Munich's trash this year." Bayern Munich, I believe, either pass or match the same number of points that they had the year before, where they won the league. And I mentioned it on a previous episode with Jose, like it took a team to go undefeated to win to end the streak for Bayern Munich. And I'm not a Bayern Munich fan by any means. This isn't me trying to defend Bayern Munich, but I'm just saying like they didn't play badly. I mean, Bayer Leverkusen was just having a better year than Bayern Munich, and sometimes it just comes down to it. And I think. And I've said this before, and I mean, Kelcey, I heard me say this plenty of times. When they lost Robert Lewandowski, they became beatable.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't feel like, oh, shoot, we got to go up against Bayern Munich. Like, it was never that anymore. Once Robert Lewandowski left, this team looked mortal to everyone else. Like, it wasn't just like, unless you're Hoffenheim, who just somehow ends up beating Bayern Munich on the occasion. I don't know why it's Hoffenheim, but it's always Hoffenheim. But
always
Hoffenheim. Shout out to Pellegrino. But like, did they not meet expectations? Oh, definitely. I mean, they definitely did not, they didn't win the Bundesliga. They didn't win the DFB Pokal. They're one round away from the Champions League. But
technically half a round away from the Champions League final.
I mean, they didn't even win the German Super Cup. So it's because that matters. But yeah, it was just a very unfortunate year for Bayern Munich. It's also hilarious because Harry Kane basically just made another meme of himself. And I pulled for Harry Kane. I'm not a hater on Harry Kane. I just hate Tottenham. But yeah, I think it took a lot of surprising things to happen in order for Bayern Munich not to win the Bundesliga, which is a good thing. And, obviously it's good that, Xabi Alonso's staying put with Bayer Leverkusen. I'm excited about Stuttgart next year. They had an amazing season. They finished in second and Bayern Munich finished in third. So, I mean, if you look at the table, then yes, they did not, they definitely fell off. But I mean, they still have, Bayern Munich still has the most money out of any team in the Bundesliga. So I don't think that they're necessarily in a bad situation as far as their finances goes. But I do have a concern with who they just hired as manager, and they hired Vincent Kompany to be the new manager of Bayern Munich. Now, there's a lot of things that come into play here, Kelcey. One, everyone they went after denied him. Ralf Rangnick said, "Nah, I'm good. I'm just gonna keep coaching Austria." Julian Nagelsmann was like, "Nah, I'm good. I'm just gonna keep coaching Germany." Who was the other name that they were going after? Xabi Alonso, obviously, staying put with Bayer Leverkusen. Don't know what happened if they even approached Roberto De Zerbi. That name is still floating around. We'll see what happens with him. Maybe he takes the Juventus job. I'm just throwing out a club. I don't know if he's in the mix for that one. But I guess when you thought of the potential names that were left out, right? Roberto De Zerbi was a name that people were hoping to see he'd get a job. They even tried to bring back Thomas Tuchel. That didn't pan out. I said it. I think that if any team should have been going after Hansi Flick, it should have been Bayern Munich. But now he's at Barcelona, and I mean, right now Barcelona can't even register him onto the club. So maybe that's your chance there, Bayern Munich. But no, it's too late now. They have committed to Vincent Kompany, which his more successful term was obviously when he initially got his job as a manager, which was with Anderlecht over in the Belgian league, which, mind you, Anderlecht is a powerhouse in Belgium.
Yes.
So take that with a grain of salt. Obviously, he got Burnley promoted the year before, and then completely obliterated in the Premier League, which is expected for teams that normally get promoted up to, especially if you don't do the proper moves to make the right signings to stay afloat in the Premier League, which I don't think Burnley necessarily did. Talking to you, JJ Watt. But this is an interesting move, right? You go after Vincent Kompany. The man literally has 4 years of coaching experience, very little European competition experience, and you're basically telling the Bayern Munich fans that this is the guy that's going to get the bounce back for Bayern Munich.
Yeah, man. If it has been last year with Vincent Kompany, I'm a little more likely to be less pessimistic about it. I'll be honest. I think coming off a promotion opportunity with Burnley, you get him up to the Premier League, huge boon to your entire coaching repertoire. Like, your resume now looks fantastic. You got Burnley there after what you did in Anderlecht, which is, again, like you said, powerhouse. Guys like Lukaku have come out of there. You name it, they've put out some great players. American Sasha Kleshin won Champions League, or won the league with them multiple times, becomes the winningest American overseas, by the way. But yeah, now you just came off of a relegation battle, and now you're going to go to the biggest team in the last quarter century, not named Real Madrid. And you're going to be like, hey, I'm going to take over with 4 years of experience, and I just got a team relegated. That's not what Bayern Munich fans need to hear. That's not what Bayern Munich players need to hear. The difference here is Vincent Kompany is obviously still a player at heart. He was a great general on the field. There's no doubt about it. Big part of the reason why Man City had to turn around in defensive abilities. Obviously, the money helped. But that's what the part that I think this is going to help him out is he changes completely from the Burnley strapped for cash situation to now there's rumors he's going to try to break Barcelona's transfer record in this offseason. Already. They've already targeted Dani Olmo to come back to the German league and now see what he can do with Bayern Munich. Who knows what other targets they're going to have here for Vincent Kompany. So this board is all in on Vincent Kompany, which any board that's all in on their coach is probably going to succeed next year. There's just no doubt about it, especially when they have the revenue that Bayern Munich can use for this while still staying within FFP rules based off their last 2 seasons of transactions. But I do think Bayern Munich as a whole is a concern anyways, because there's a lot of defensive holes that need to be fixed here. And I think that starts at your number 6 position. I don't think having what has been a right back his entire career play as a 6, again, trying to be Philipp Lahm, is a smart move. I think you keep the right back in the right back position that made him a world-class right back. Yes, he does have talents beyond that. That's not, who cares? He's the better right back. And right now, your right back position is questionable. You gave up 5 goals to Eintracht Frankfurt in a 5-1 defeat. You gave up 2 goals to VfL Bochum in a loss. You gave up, I don't know how many to Hoffenheim. I think 2 goals to Hoffenheim.
I mean, Kramer scored a hat trick off of them.
Yeah, and it all comes starting on what is the offensive left side and your right side in defense. You can't have that. If you have a hole, you fill it with your best available position instead of putting Joshua Kimmich at the number 6 position. That just ruins your entire defensive ability. And obviously some injuries played a part of Bayern's finish to the season. Sure, okay, whatever. You still have Harry Kane there. We all know what that guy can do with scoring. But if you're so busy playing defense that you can't get the ball to one of the best scoring strikers in our history, not named Robert Lewandowski, there's a problem. And you saw it there at the end of the season, the last 5 games, 3 losses, like not good enough if you're Bayern Munich. So I don't think Vincent Kompany solves all this problem, but I think the money they're going to put behind Vincent Kompany solves all the problems that I might have with this. So while I don't think it's a great hire, I do think Bayern Munich has a plan like they've had a plan for the last decade plus.
Yeah, I think a little bit, obviously, lot different from the Xavi situation that it was when he was with Barcelona. But obviously, like you mentioned, Vincent Kompany's time as a player, well-respected player, a player that I'm sure a lot of guys playing in the leagues have respect for. Obviously, Leroy Sané, I'm sure a guy that has at least trained with him a few times while he was still in Man City, is very familiar with him. Obviously, the big concern for Bayern Munich is there's a lot of aging players now. You got to trim the fat out. You brought in Eric Dyer for some weird reason. I still can't figure out that transfer. But you're right. Joshua Kimmich needs to be back at right back. Alphonso Davies, he's rumored to be leaving, but apparently Vincent Kompany might be enough to keep him at Bayern Munich. As a matter, apparently. I know that the rumor is that they're going to spend 100 mil on getting Ronald Araujo from Barcelona, which basically take advantage of Barcelona's financial struggles right there, and get yourself a world-class center back to join forces with Matthias de Ligt, who I'm still waiting for him to finally be here in this league. Not only just in this league, but just be here in Europe. He hasn't been the same since he left Ajax. But I definitely want to see Matthias de Ligt definitely get some play time. That midfield, we need to start moving some guys around. I think one of the things that Tuchel really fucked up was that he wasn't playing Thomas Müller. And I know that you have Jamal Musiala. I know that. I think you have to find a way to play those two, because Thomas Müller is one of your best contributors on the ball. Musiala, I think, while he can play the cam very well, I think can even be more lethal on the wings. And I know I say that, and I'm basically saying we gotta figure out what's going on with Gnabry and Leroy Sané, but you kind of have to figure out what you're going to do with Leroy Sané and Gnabry, because those guys are getting up there in age as well. So I mean, it's about improving what you can improve. Like you said, go get a 6. And I think there's actually a lot of, Casemiro, I would probably be looking at trying to help out Manchester United out a bit too, over there. Yeah. But yeah, I think this is one of those times where Bayern Munich, like you said, has the money to go and get who they need. And I think the fact that there's players that have a lot of respect for Vincent Kompany and know that Vincent Kompany, who knows you better than a player? Yeah. A guy that's gone through it. So I think that there's a lot of respect for him, and I think there's going to be a lot of guys that play for him. But the thing is, though, if he's not performing, which we've seen Bayern Munich do plenty of times, obviously they prematurely fired Julian Nagelsmann, and I'm sure they definitely regret that move ever since. They don't want to make. I'm sure they don't want to make that same mistake again. But Bayern Munich is that team that has no problem moving on from a coach if they're not performing.
Yeah, and it's funny you mentioned who better to know you than a coach that's played, not just a coach that's played, but a coach that's played recently. I mean, we're talking 4-5 years pre-COVID is since the last time he was on a pitch. And it was really recent. I mean, and he was a big part of the success. Again, and I cannot repeat that enough. He was a big part of the success Man City had in that turnaround when the money came in to keep them on balance, and not just them, but also Belgium and what their turnaround was in the world stage. He's a big part of it. He didn't play in their last 2 World Cups because of injury, and then obviously being out of the league, no longer playing. But you still look at that, and that alone tells you enough to be there. And it's funny you mentioned their midfield needing work. I honestly, when you said their midfield, until you said somebody, I was like, I cannot think of a single midfielder, because I'm thinking of Musiala as a left winger at this point in time in my mind, because outside of Joshua Kimmich, I'm lost for who's in their midfield, as far as who's in the midfield that's skilled enough to be in Bayern Munich's midfield. And I say that with the same weight I say Real Madrid's midfield. I'm not saying this I'm talking I'm Burnley and their midfield. I don't care. But for Bayern Munich, you need that link between back and front, and that's always been their success. When they got rid of Thiago and Liverpool took advantage of that, Jurgen Klopp took advantage of that seemed to be the start of a disconnect between their back line, their front line, and attacking through like they had been, and it turned into a wing attacking game for Bayern Munich. And now you see the downfall of what happens when you do that, and then a wing like Serge Gnabry and like Leroy Sané fall off in a season. You don't have the successes. And yes, Sadio Mane did not work out for them. That's safe to say. But you know what? You really didn't play a system that was good for him to begin with, so that's to be expected. And if Harry Kane can't get service, he's not going to work out again, and that's going to be look bad. And fans for Bayern Munich, though, they do seem to trust the organization more than they trust the players, which kind of sucks for the players because the players get blamed at the end of the day and not like, hey, this was a bad move by you to choose a bad manager. So hopefully Kompany can take advantage of that, see what he has on the field, which I think he can. I think he's more than capable of doing so, and address that and make that work. And like you said, there's a lot of good players out there. You said Casemiro is just a stopgap right now. There's so many good older players as well. And, there shouldn't be an issue getting Musiala and Mueller on the field together, because when you have a real six back there, those two can be on the field together. Mm-hmm. When you have Joshua Kimmich on the field, you then would have three ball-retaining midfielders who need the ball at their feet. It's no different than having 2 point guards on the court at the same time as for basketball. It's too many cooks in the kitchen. You just can't have that. It's not going to be successful. And yeah, that's, figure that out. And I think you're good. So start with that sixth position and work your way around. Like you said, get a partner for De Ligt, or maybe just ship out De Ligt at this point in time and get two new center backs. That's always a possibility.
That's very true. And Bayern Munich is one of those teams that can't get away with that.
Yeah.
But Bayer Leverkusen is obviously going to be the team to watch in the Bundesliga to see how they respond to the year that they had, which obviously first undefeated team in Bundesliga history. Obviously they get their double.
Impressive.
On all those things, and we'll get to Bayer Leverkusen's Europa League match a little bit further down. But obviously all eyes are on them. But aside from that, maybe what happened Stuttgart? Two things can happen. Either they're able to continue their form, or they take a dip, which seems to be the theme of Bundesliga. There's always that German team that steps up and then falls off. Union Berlin, great example. Yeah. Qualified for Champions League last year. They were fighting for their lives to avoid relegation. Or did they get relegated? No, they did avoid relegation. So it's it happens. That's exactly what happens with this. Borussia Dortmund went from balling the Bundesliga last year to somehow making fifth place becoming a Champions League spot. So it's just things that happens with this league. And Bayern Munich, I think at the end of the day, is still Bayern Munich. I think they'll still be contending for the title. I'm not saying that a new streak could happen, because I'm hoping that the Bundesliga becomes more competitive. But as long as Bayern Munich has their resources and has a good team philosophy, and Kompany can just keep the ship arise, I could see Bayern Munich bounce back and win the Bundesliga again.
Yeah, I could. And I don't think it's much. I don't think they need much. It's small things they need. Trust in a manager, a consistent system throughout the year, less injuries, and then starting to phase out these older players with newer players, younger players who are full of talent, which they can afford, which they can get from their own. I mean, they have enough guys out on loan. They could easily bring a couple of them back. I believe one of the Richards is still there and could easily fill a center back position in spots. I'm not saying a long-term situation right now, but easily in spots until you get a full solidified back line. There's a lot of ability in Bayern, and just getting the right coach with the right temperament, with the right management style for that team is going to be perfect for them. But don't sleep on somebody like RB Leipzig. You talk about teams that have just progressively picked up. They're one that have picked up over the last 5 years, and now they're in a position where 2 years in a row they finished behind Bayern, or in third place last year. This year in fourth place, right behind Bayern. Both years, 65 points this year, 71 last year, tied with Bayern, I believe, at that point. Huge years for RB Leipzig, but they're still also right there in that position, but they're also feeding into Bayern like what Dortmund was doing a few years ago. So there's a little concern there. And with that in mind, I mean, because of that, you probably have an ability for Bayern just to be like, you know what? We're going to go back to making the rest of the Bundesliga our feeder teams and taking all of your good players, which is what they did successfully for ever.
Yeah,
I mean,
I'm just going to say this, man. If RB Leipzig, if you can do anything, and I mean anything this offseason, find a way to keep Xavi Simons.
Yes.
find a way to keep Xavi Simons, because if he goes back to PSG, which I mean, it's a weird. PSG is going to be a weird. It's going to be weird. I'm actually excited to see what PSG does, just because of like who becomes the new step up. Because everyone was expecting Gonzalo Ramos to have a big step up. He did not. Even the other player, what was the other French player that they signed to be basically Mbappe? Ekambi? It was a French
Openda?
striker. It was the guy that missed the penalty in the World Cup. Man,
Oh, crap.
was it Ekambi? I could be wrong.
I think it
on that.
was.
Was it? Yeah, I think it was Ekambi. I believe because they brought him. I think they brought him over because I think he was with Frankfurt, either Frankfurt or some German team. But I know that he goes there. He was supposed to be the heir apparent to Mbappe when the second time around that Real Madrid was going to go after him. But yeah, they obviously didn't pan out. But maybe now that Mbappe is gone, they get more minutes, and maybe we can see what they really are capable of. But yeah, if Leipzig, if you can do anything, get Xavi Simons, keep him on your team, because especially if you somehow lose if you lose Dani Olmo to Bayern Munich, yeah, it's not gonna be easy. But then again, it's RB Leipzig; they always find somebody. So
Yeah. Yeah. It's only a matter of time. That Red Bull money really pays off.
and I mean, now you got Leeds United onto your list of Red Bull teams. It's getting unreal.
Yeah, well, between them and the City organization, like, goodness.
Yeah, but the City organization, like, that's just straightly that's like purely unfair. Because I mean, I will say this though, because if the Red Bull group actually worked, Leipzig should have gotten Haaland from when he was at Salzburg, and he didn't. So
shoulda, coulda, woulda. No, it's funny because they're under the difference is they're under contract at City, and they can just literally trade the players within themselves as how their contracts work.
Like just
Versus
like how
Red
Savio
Bull,
out of nowhere is going to be playing for Man City.
Yeah, where like Red Bull on the other hand, they I believe it is Salzburg they're not allowed corporate sponsors or corporate ownership. So while technically speaking, the corporation does own them, they do it through a person, and that doesn't prevents them from using those type of contracts, which is really interesting and really weird, and leave it to European contracts to be that way.
Yeah, but all right, we'll see what happens with Bayern Munich this season with Vincent Kompany. But the last headline, man. So Emmanuel Reynoso. Also, mind you, Minnesota United is doing really well in the MLS this year so far. So I don't want to take anything away from.
Can we flash back to our prediction time frame when I talked about them being pretty good? Was that I believe that was my prediction for the year?
I think it was.
Can we run that on a replay right here? That sounds fantastic to me.
Yeah, I'll have to find a clip, but yeah, I'll do it.
And even if it's bad, I want to hear it.
Sure. Well, I mean, I picked Orlando City to win the MLS Cup, and that's not panning out too well. But don't worry, it's not just me. Eli Lesser and a lot of MLS pundits did too. So, but Emmanuel Reynoso, if you guys remember, everyone felt that Reynoso was like the talisman for Minnesota United. He does all these things with the ball, blah blah blah. Great player, but he has been a little shit recently with Minnesota United. And it's funny enough because it's like he's doing this and now the team's good. As a matter of fact, Minnesota United got an assistant from Manchester United to become their coach. And I mean, before he even got hired on with an interim coach, they were still winning matches. And now they have their coach and they're still winning matches. So it has been insane for Minnesota United. They're looking like true contenders for at least for a playoff position. I'm not going to say MLS Cup potential yet, but they're definitely up there. And they're doing this without Reynoso, which is like the most insane thing of all these things. And you guys are probably wondering where has Reynoso been? Well, he's been AWOL. He basically went down to South America and he hasn't come back since. So
that's a wild. His last 3 years are absolutely wild. You have the AWOL story, then you have literally pistol whipping somebody 2 years ago. I he's had jail time and he's still allowed to play in a professional league. Think about that. Like he's committed an actual felony in what would be in America, but obviously he did it in South America. Survived 10 days in jail there to come back to the MLS and play, which is wild. And then went AWOL for 7 weeks. Did anybody check a jail by chance? Just curious.
I don't know. And also, so he went back-to-back years with going AWOL. He went AWOL last year. He was going back to South America to get his, I believe his green card taken care of. This time around, though, he came back to handle his green card stuff, and he just never came back. Actually, as a matter of fact, he never worked on it. So it seemed like the rumors were like that he wasn't happy with Minnesota United, so you had that controversy that everyone thought that that's going to be a distraction to the team. Clearly, it wasn't because they're winning. And then of all things, while he's AWOL, a video surfaces of Reynoso holding a bag of cash, while I guess somebody in his entourage is in the background pulling a John Morant, holding a pistol out. So, which obviously MLS is investigating.
I don't get it, man.
I'm like, dude, this is like, I'm just like, this is a thing. Like,
I don't know who's worse, John Moran or this guy with how many times they're found around a gun. I mean, geez, Gilbert's Young Guns all over again.
Yeah, it's insane. Which MLS, like I said, is investigating it. But, so what do you do if you're Minnesota? Like, obviously, this guy has been, when he has played, has been very productive for the team. But I mean, clearly he does not want to be with the team. Seems to be the case. And so Minnesota's like, F it, we're winning. We don't need him. We got Caden Clark. So they just sold him to whoever wanted to get him. And of all the teams, for a guy that has pistol whipped somebody, has a video leaked out of him holding a bag of cash with a pistol, of all the teams in the world, the most ironic fit is Club Tijuana. Reynoso's going to TJ. And I mean, perfect fit. I'm just going to say this, perfect fit for the guy. I'm going to pray for him because shit goes down in Tijuana. That's all I got to say. But yeah, this has just been a very hilarious chain of events. I honestly, when going into talking about the MLS, I thought Reynoso was going to be a big factor for Minnesota. Clearly, I was wrong about that. But yeah, here we are.
Yeah. It's funny because you hear his teammates talk, and you saw Minnesota's captain Boxall come out and say he's the nicest guy when he's playing with us. He's a great guy, really kind, but something weird happens when he touches down in Cordoba, and then you just hear that, and then you see his last 2 years, and you're like, wait, hold on now. Now he's going to Tijuana, and look, we obviously, both of us being Americans here, we have our own, I guess, thoughts on Tijuana that come from media and everything else. But let's be honest, they come from somewhere, and it is partially 95% true about what you hear about Tijuana. And yeah, it's I couldn't think of a better situation to throw this guy into and just look for some action at this point in time, because this is just, you hope he's going to be okay. You hope whatever's happening is okay, but at the same time, like, this is probably going to provide some comedic content for a little while.
Yeah, the irony is definitely not far off on this one. Yeah, man, dude, it's so unfortunate because Reynoso, especially when he first started playing with Minnesota, was amazing. And I mean, even despite all this drama that he brought into Minnesota, he was always an amazing player, a fan favorite in some cases, and
teammate favorite. His teammates love him.
Yeah, great guy.
When he's there.
But yeah, there's just no excuse. You know, you're going AWOL. You have a contractual obligation to your team. You signed the contract. Like you committed to this team. Unless you get shipped out to somewhere else, unless you get traded or in soccer sense, you get transferred out. You got to commit to your contract. And he wasn't. And I still can't believe the whole pistol whipping thing. That just.
All right. Over under 6 months before we hear a new news story about Reynoso. Because at this point in time, I'm going under 6 months for me.
I got it. Oh, man. You're taking the under. I guess I got to take the over, but I feel like I'm going to lose that one.
Oh, I'll be even more specific. I'll even say it'll be within the next 3 months that we'll hear something about him.
Okay, I'll take that over.
Okay.
I'll take that over for sure.
Yeah, I'm saying within the next 3 months. This is crazy. Like, you don't take somebody who is okay. Cordoba is what it is. Cordoba is also a place where shit happens, and maybe not the best place to be going to, and for anybody trying to be a professional soccer player. But then, like, on top of that, now you're mixing that in with Tijuana, and talks of the green card situation. That doesn't necessarily affect him as much in Mexico as it does in America. There's a little bit less stringent green card regulations for playing as a non-Mexican citizen than it is for Americans coming in for a job. So that part of it as well comes into play. So potentially brings his entourage with him as assistants because they couldn't come into America to work with him. And now who knows what else is about to happen. And we've seen however many incidents in Liga MX over the years. 3 months, I might be being generous now that I'm thinking about it.
Yeah, I hope Xolos know what they're doing. I hope Club Tijuana knows what they're doing with this because, he's a good player. I will say
on
that.
On the field, one of the better players in the MLS. Off the field, well, he is not in the MLS for a reason.
Out of the country.
Yeah.
It's a whole different story. But, yeah, so that is headlines. We're going to go ahead and take a break, and then we'll go right into our recaps for the European competitions.
Righteous Felon Craft Jerky is the official jerky of BellyUpSports. For over a decade, Righteous Felon Craft Jerky has led the American meat snack revolution by concocting delicious, adventurous, U.S.-sourced jerky recipes for uncompromising carnivores across the country. With 15 different flavors to choose from, Righteous Felon has all jerky lovers covered, and by using promo code BELLYUP, you will get 15% off your purchase at RighteousFelon.com. Do your taste buds a favor today and rip into a bag of Righteous Felon jerky.
All right, guys, we're back. All right. All the European competitions are over. We are now officially in the off season as far as your, regular club competition, because now we're also going into the summer of soccer. So that's going to be fun. All right. So the Europa Conference League. We have the final. The final actually happened this past it happened on Wednesday. But Olympiacos beat Fiorentina 1-0. Fiorentina had 54% of the possession. Fiorentina outshot Olympiacos 17-6, but shots were even. Shots on goal were even 4-4. This game was very exciting. I know. Okay, it's exciting for me. Obviously, I enjoy defensive football. I've said this plenty of times on this podcast that I actually do enjoy defensive football matches. I know that for the people that hate soccer because it's low scoring, it's so low scoring, you guys get excited for a 0-0 draw. I get that why you guys hate it. But the thing is when you're playing very well defensively throughout the match, and when you have that moment where you finally crack through that defense and put one in the back of the net, it is, to me, is the most satisfying thing ever. Because one, it just tells it your back line now felt like we were so good that we weren't, there was no bend and break on our side. But, there's a confidence into it. I understand. I mean, I played a lot of defensive positions, so that's the only reason why I end up taking more pride on defensive matches. But yeah, no, I enjoyed the match. And the winner was scored by Ayub El Kabi in the 160th minute because it went to extra time. So they were 4 minutes away. Fiorentina was 4 minutes away from going to penalties where it could have been anybody's game. And it's not, because Olympiacos has now become the first Greek team to win a European championship club. Your first Greek club team. Which, as I'm saying this now, what year am I? A Greek team has won a European competition.
1998, 1997, 98. Is that when it was? The Euros?
I think it was 2000.
Oh yeah, 2002.
No, 2002
No,
was
2000. It would have been 2000.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Greece won the World Cup. No,
thanks, Beckham. Red card.
Greece won the Euro.
Yeah, but this is an interesting game. From top to bottom, where my favorite thing about these is always reading the team specific blogs that come out afterwards with conversation. So for Fiorentina, it is the Viola Nation, and its sub headline says that just when you think the Viola have hurt you every way you can be hurt, they remind you that they can always find a new way. And I don't think I've read a better sub headline in recent memory.
To be fair, they just came back to the final only to lose it again. Back-to-back UEFA Conference League finals.
Hey, the Bills did it 4 times in a row is all I'm saying.
Also, 3 straight times that a Serie A team has made it to the final as well. 1 and 2.
It was impressive. I mean, like top to bottom, this was an impressive situation. Impressive atmosphere for the game. You mentioned a defensive game. I do also enjoy them. Probably more so because I was a keeper. So clean sheets are always my favorite thing in the world. Because that's what you're judged on as a keeper is how many times did a ball get by you, and you have to dig it out of the back of the net, because less the better. And also to your point, it's also one of the best atmospheres I've ever been in a long 0-0 game, 0-0, especially going into extra time. And then all of a sudden that late in the second half of extra time, you get a goal, the atmosphere explodes. It's exciting. It's fun. But the pressure that comes from that as well, the next 4.5 minutes was insane. Like it was a fun game all around, from the fact that it was just from a neutral fan spectacle. I enjoyed every minute of it. I enjoyed all 121 minutes technically. But all of that plus extra time, it was fun to me. I enjoyed it. I thought it was good. I love heart-stopping finishes, and last-minute goals or last 5-minute goals in extra time are always a classic to me. It's even better when it's in the stoppage time section of it. But, we all can't have those opportunities. But 116th minute, you can't beat that too often. And for a Greek club team to have this type of a moment in today's day and age, where we just were talking about how some of the greatest clubs have the money to do whatever they want to, and then Olympiacos is over here like, hey guys, we want a European competition too, and not just a Super Cup over in whatever country we want to have this 4-team tournament in anymore. Like they actually want a real club European Cup that Jose Mourinho has tattooed on his body. Like, good for them. It is exciting, but yeah, Fiorentina. I mean, can you make it 3 in a row at this point?
And you mentioned that. This is one of the reasons why I think that there's a benefit to the Europa Conference League.
Yeah,
because you're not going to get you're not going to see Olympiacos in the final. I mean, obviously back in the day, that's a whole different story. Yeah. But like, the Europa League, you're going to see at least the more bigger teams normally. As it trickles down to the semifinals, you'll start seeing more familiar names than you do when it started in the group stages. When you start in the group stages with the Europa Conference League, which I guess now that's not going to be a thing anymore. It's going to be just one giant table. But the names, I mean, I butchered every one of them because I can't pronounce them. So, like, that's what I liked about the Europa Conference League, because it made you study more of these teams and learn about these teams, learn about the cultures of those teams, different regions of Europe that you never knew had a league. And so I thought that it's really interesting. I know that we shit on it because, obviously Liverpool and Real Madrid, they're more known for Champions League success than these other two leagues that come. Also, I believe Klopp did win the Europa League though.
He did,
but it's just
they lost the Europa League.
Oh, okay, but yeah, the Europa Conference League, bro. That's the one thing I do like about that tournament is that it opens up an opportunity for these teams to feel this success. Like, even last year when West Ham won it, it was exciting to see the fans finally be able to feel what success feels like because of the Europa Conference League. And I know I'm talking about West Ham United, and obviously then we wouldn't have the great meme of Jose Mourinho having a third tattoo for some weird reason. But, and then also the fun fact that Jose Mourinho is the only manager to have won all three of these trophies, which I just like that it's a sick flex because it went literally in a downward spiral in some sense. But yeah, so this is one of the things that I do like about the Europa Conference League. For teams like Olympiacos, because this is their moment right there. We saw Greece just, fully in party mode because of representation for their country, and I think that's the great part. And now we're going to see Olympiacos in the Europa League. So there is that.
It's exciting from that standpoint. I want to go back to you mentioned giving teams a chance. There was a team from Kazakhstan in the group stages. Astana from Kazakhstan. How many people knew Kazakhstan had a professional league? Really, that's part of this, and seeing the opportunity, and then also, there's teams from leagues that shock me in a little bit. Club Brugge being in this competition and not in the Europa League, shocking. Aston Villa being in this and not in the Champions League or in the Europa League, also shocking. And to see that at the end of the day, it's a Greek team that finishes out on top of it. No better opportunity to kind of showcase what the point of this is. And to your point you made earlier, this is why they added this third, champions trophy, if you will. If they don't find something to replace it, it's going to be sad because this was, I think, a really good 3-year run of this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I can't wait to see it. Hopefully, Europa Conference League continues on because it is enjoyable. I wish I can cover it better, but like I said, I think keeping it where I just cover the semifinal and then from there on out is probably the best way to do it because I'm just not going to be able to cover it as well as I would want to cover it. So
not as easy watch of the matches. They're not at the same time as Champions League.
Exactly.
That's my only complaint. Give me Tuesdays and Wednesdays, 3 p.m. I'm good with that.
All right. So the final that actually happened a week before. So Europa League was the one that kicked off this whole thing, which I still kind of baffled by that because I feel like they need to at least flip Conference League so that Europa League's the second final that's being watched. But that's just me being a little picky. But the Europa League final, man, Atalanta beating Bayer Leverkusen 3-0. Bayer Leverkusen had 67% of the possession. Both teams had 10 shots, and Atalanta had more shots on target, 7-3. And the man that came from this was a guy that I highlighted during the African Cup of Nations, Ademola Lookman, who scores a hat trick in the 12th minute, the 26th minute, and the 75th minute to secure Atalanta winning the Europa League. And I believe this is their first European title in the team's history, and to do it against an undefeated Bayer Leverkusen and give them their one and only loss in the calendar year of 2023-24 has to be the most satisfying victory for this club. And also the iconic moment of their coach shushing Xabi Alonso on the benches. If you guys saw Insert Name FC's Twitter at Insert Name FC, you would have seen the tweet of the post because it's X. The post of the picture that we posted, it was like, this is the moment where Atalanta secured the loss to Bayer Leverkusen, was him shushing Xabi Alonso. So I think very satisfying victory for a team like Atalanta, a team that I used to praise a lot because Serie A kind of was, both Milans were down bad. Nobody was really competing with Juventus, but Atalanta became that team that was rising, getting Champions League opportunities. Obviously, I guess kind of couldn't get their build up to the point to where they could be contending for the title. because then obviously both Milans came back into prime. AS Roma seems like they're coming back up into the mix as well. Napoli winning it the year before. But Atalanta, it's like, hey, we're still here. And as a matter of fact, you're going to see us on Champions League.
Yeah, this was a heck of a game from Lookman and for Atalanta in this one. Tough break for Leverkusen to go out this way. You kind of almost see it though all the time in teams that have a really good run, and then they celebrate that run in their league, which is what happened there with Leverkusen. They celebrated their league title before they played their Europa League match, and guess what ends up happening? You have a little bit of a hangover from that. Your heart's not fully in it as much because it's not the Champions League. And, well, let's just say Ademola Lookman just gave them something to look at as they were picking that one out of the old onion bag. And, yeah, it's, man, impressive game top to bottom. But, yeah, you feel bad for Leverkusen because that's an impressive run they had all year, and they could have been the actual Immortals. Arsenal losing, 6 games, something like that in the season, even though they're called the Immortals, whatever. Anyways.
Well, the Invincibles, because in Premier League, they were undefeated.
Yeah, sure, whatever. You lose games, you're no longer invincible. But no, this is one I honestly, it sucks for Xabi Alonso, it sucks for Leverkusen, but it shows that now you have something to build on. So as a coach, I don't think he could have been happier. I think he comes out of that yes, slightly disappointed they didn't win. But, man, he's excited for next year, which I think is a big part of why he's sticking around next year is because he thinks there's things to build on. And this just really proved it for him that, yep, there's a lot for us to improve on, and here we go. And now
competition's only going to get harder.
Yeah.
And, you're going to see Atalanta at some point, I'm guessing. Or at least Atalanta will be hoping to see you again. But
here's my question about Atalanta, though. We mentioned Ademola Lookman a couple times, and you mentioned him in the African Cup of Nations. Is this the resurgence finally of Lookman, who's previous England striker that was a lot of people were touting and then just could never get it figured out? Is this finally at the year 26, 27 now? Is he finally starting to figure it out? Is in big games this year for Atalanta, he's shown up, and I don't think there's a bigger stage for him this year now.
I think we've seen this plenty of times where a player maybe not necessarily lives up to the expectations that they had when they were playing with a certain team, especially when we're talking about Premier League. We're talking about Leicester City, which was, I think at that point, that was Jamie Vardy's team. Actually, still is Jamie Vardy's team.
He played at Everton too. He's had some stops that just never figured it out.
Yeah, but beside Leicester, I don't think that there was any Everton's necessarily. I'm surprised that team didn't get relegated. It's certain things like that where I think Ademola just needed a different place, because Premier League is just a different beast, man. The pace of the game is just obviously a whole different level. I'm not saying defensively it's top tier, but obviously for entertainment value, Premier League is definitely it is where it's at. But sometimes there's just guys that can't handle that kind of level of speed and pace. And I think Italy was a good fit for him. A lot of guys that do end up maybe not panning out in the Premier League, and they go to Serie A. And I'm not saying that Serie A is a slower league. It's a more physical league. I think anybody can tell you that. I would tell you, man, if you can get some elbows on you and you still be able to put one in the back of the net, you're going to definitely be able to pay off in these international tournaments, which, maybe that's another confidence boost that he got from was performing well with Nigeria. I believe he was the leading goal scorer for Nigeria, a team that had Victor Osimhen on their lineup. And he goes in there and he became kind of the man for Nigeria and took that confidence with him and back to Atalanta, and it has really paid off for him.
Yeah, it is interesting because you do mention the difference between the Italian league and Premier League, and the one thing I will say about the Italian league as well is speed kills in the Italian league. So while it is physical, speed is a lot more evident in the Italian league than it is in the Premier League, because the Premier League, a lot of guys are fast. The Italian league, you have a good handful that are fast, but then also to beat the more powerful players, you have to be skillful with the ball, and those simple technical abilities are showcased a lot more in the Italian game. And then when you add speed to it, like you stand out well. And to your point, I think maybe it did give him some confidence to play like he did, coming up with the England national setup and that entire international team before switching over to Nigeria. That then adding in what his success was at Nigeria, making him that, give him that like boost of motivation, and then maybe picking the brain of somebody like Victor Osimhen, and who had a great year in Italy himself. And then now he goes back into the Italian setup and helps them win a Europa League. Maybe that's the case. And also, German teams really never fare well against Italian teams. I never understood that. Like when it comes to these European Championship games, they always seem to struggle. Very few exceptions in that. But I think back to Inter playing Bayern. If it wasn't for Arjen Robben, I don't think that Bayern would pull that Champions League victory off. And that was like 2010, 2011, maybe.
Yeah.
But yeah, very few opportunities do the German teams ever get a chance to beat Italian teams successfully. And you see it again here. Italian teams just somehow dominate German teams and when it comes to the European finals.
Yeah, I have noticed that trend as well. So, but Atalanta had their moment. Obviously, it was last week, but obviously we were going to do all the European competitions today. So that's why. But just so you guys remember, Atalanta did their thing against Bayer Leverkusen. But all right, the final, weirdly enough, the Champions League final, Real Madrid defeats Borussia Dortmund 2-0. I actually predicted this final score when I previewed the Champions League final, so hats off to me on that one. This was a final where I, like, kind of how I mentioned earlier in the episode, that I was a little conflicted. Obviously, I'm a Madrid, and I'm going to be rooting for Real Madrid too. And obviously some people got mad at me when I remember the Man City matchup when I did the little clip on that. Everyone gets mad at me. I'm damned if I do, damned if I don't. But
you're a Madrid fan. Did you expect anything less?
I get it. I get why you guys don't like Madridistas. Like, I really do. I know I'm not one of them. Because obviously I think I speak with logic when I talk about Real Madrid.
Sometimes.
But there is, I know when you guys talk about like arrogant Real Madrid fans, I've dealt with plenty of them, and I was just like, I see it. Okay. I definitely see it.
Yeah. I'm a Cowboys fan in American football, so I'm the same way. I get it. I get why people don't like Cowboys fans, so I totally get it. But yeah, Madrid fans. That's why everybody loves to hate you and hates to love you.
Exactly.
I think that's the way to say that. Yeah.
Yeah, basically. But yeah, so I was conflicted with this final because of the fact that we are talking about Real Madrid, which is the team I support all the way through. It is my club. When I do say I support Arsenal, but my club is Real Madrid. There is a difference. Maybe some people don't understand that, but there is a difference with that. But they were going up against Borussia Dortmund, a team that, like I said, it is very hard to hate this team. Obviously their story of being able to produce so much talent, yet lose so much talent at the same time, is baffling, but still able to stay afloat. And then you have a player that, once again, you can't hate. You cannot hate Marco Reus. If I met someone that says that I hate Marco Reus, either you're a liar or, you know what, you deserve to be hated on. So
they're definitely a Bremen fan.
Probably that. Or kind of weird that he stayed at Mönchengladbach.
Yeah.
And obviously the Jadon Sancho bounce back story, like there was a lot of storylines with Borussia Dortmund that you're just like, it is so hard not to root for this team. You have Sebastian Haller. I know that he wasn't starting. Obviously, you had Niklas Füllkrug, who had a great year with Borussia Dortmund this season. But you got Hummels, who he got teased by Bayern Munich for a while, but then finally came back. Like I said, storyline after storyline after storyline. Like, there's a lot of storylines that you could talk about this game. But as far as Borussia Dortmund goes, but then also on the other side, you got Jude Bellingham facing his former team, playing in his home country, which, you could say the same thing for Jadon Sancho. You have Tony Cruz, who is retiring, not contemplating. He's retiring. He said, "I'm going to leave at the highest of highs." They won La Liga. He wants to win his sixth Champions League, which, as a matter of fact, there was three other players that were looking to win their sixth Champions League: Nacho Fernandez, Luka Modric, and Dani Carvajal, being those three that also were looking at their sixth Champions League title. And yeah, and of course, Real Madrid going after the coveted 15 Champions League title to just keep pushing themselves ahead in the Champions League title run, in the record books and all that. So there's a lot of things, and obviously also the streak that Real Madrid is undefeated in Champions League finals, which is one of the most bizarre. As old as Real Madrid is, that's all I'm saying, and I believe it's since it became the Champions League final. I'm not counting the Europe, the UEFA European, whatever it used to be called.
The King's Cup?
Yeah, whatever it used to be called, because I do believe Real Madrid lost some of those finals. I'm just saying since they switched over and called it the Champions League, Real Madrid has never lost a final, and which is very impressive if you think about it. So there's a lot of shit. There's like so many storylines going into this final. Which is, I could be probably arrogant and like maybe thought that there's not many finals that have this number of storylines, but I feel like that I'm not wrong on that.
No, I think you're spot on. This was a chock full of storylines, and while you took the Tony Cruz line for the 6 championships, I want to talk about the Dani Carvajal line here for a second because you missed this one. He tied the Enzo, I can't think of his first name, for the most amount of Champions League wins while starting every Champions League match, which was also 6. So that part is also, so now there's 5 players when there was just one. There are now 5 players who have won 6 titles, and Carvajal and Enzo now become the only 2 to have started all 6 while winning it. So yeah, there's storylines upon storylines upon storylines upon storylines. Carlo Ancelotti's first return back to England to play in a final since he was with Everton, which that failed experiment. So obviously he has some haters in England, and there's
still
lot.
One of the weirdest jobs to have ever accepted. But all right.
Yeah, so the top to bottom there were storylines literally everywhere. It was insane. I don't remember many, and also I still stand by Sergio Ramos wasn't out as a hitman duty. That unbeaten record might be different, but Sergio Ramos channeled his inner Pepe and just forgot to get the red card for it. I digress, though.
Was that the game that had was it the goalkeeper? Yeah, it was.
Yeah, the goalie rolling
Karius.
the ball.
Yeah, I mean, Karius definitely kept that streak alive too.
Yeah.
MVP, some may say.
He was your guys' MVP, absolutely.
Man of the match was definitely that. Just so many stories. And I mean, also you have to think about Real Madrid started the year. Eder Militao tore his ACL.
Mm-hmm.
David Alaba, a couple matches later, tore his ACL. Thibaut Courtois tore his ACL before the season even started. That's why Real Madrid had to go get Kepa on loan. And I did say, I was like, I'd rather see Lunin. I'd much rather see Lunin starting than see Kepa, which eventually people kind of wised up and said, yeah, let's start Lunin. And who, applause to him. I know that he got sick. If it wasn't for the fact that he was sick, that he would have started this match. But I mean, it's Courtois, dude. The guy is just built for these big moments, which he came up pretty big in this final as well. But yeah, there's just so many storylines to go after. I mean, Dortmund, who would have thought the team that was doing so poorly in the Bundesliga wins the group of death, and just besides PSV, goes on a straight gauntlet to make it to the final, including a Diego Simeone-led Atletico Madrid going up against PSG. I'm missing one more team. I just don't remember what was the other team. No, wait. PSV.
Lazio? Was it
No.
Lazio?
Oh, no, for the round of 16.
Nope. Hang on.
PSV, Atletico Madrid. Oh, yeah. No, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, that'd been. Yeah.
And then PSG.
Yep.
So they legitimately went through a gauntlet. And to come back, and each one had like a big, but obviously besides PSV, had some sort of tough competition ahead of them, some big star that they had to go up against. And then they had to go up against Real Madrid, who is just when you think of Champions League, you think of Real Madrid. So a lot of it was going against them, I would honestly say. But getting into the statistics of this match, Real Madrid had 57% of the possession. So that tells you how, even though Real Madrid did have possession in the match, it was very much contested. Both teams had 13 shots. And Real Madrid edged Borussia Dortmund 6 shots to 4 on target. And obviously the winner came off of Danny Carvajal in the 74th minute off of a header. And Vinicius Jr. goes ahead and puts a dagger on the 83rd minute. And that's how Real Madrid won their 15th Champions League title. How Toni Kroos ends his career with his 6th Champions League title. His first Champions League title being in 2013 versus Borussia Dortmund in Wembley Stadium.
Yeah. First of all, I have a fight to pick with the statistics people. Can we please change shots that hit off posts to be on target? Because it does hit the target. It does. It hit the target. No keeper's just letting that go by. It hit the target. It happened. Can we please call those shots on target? So at least their 4 shots on target looks a little better with 5, considering one of them should be an expected goal and it wasn't. But yeah, it's like, I don't know what else I can say in this game other than Dortmund missed every opportunity to beat Real Madrid. Yeah. They missed every opportunity. And Real Madrid does what Real Madrid does, which is weather the storm. And then when you least expect them to break through, they break through. And you started to see Vinny get involved a little more in that second half and get involved attacking. I mean, his one touch, like after bringing the ball down on a long cross-field ball from Carvajal, he would bring the ball down and immediately attack the left back every single time. I don't even know who the left back was there anymore. I think it was Motland or something like that. But that guy was left in absolute purgatory every single time Vinny attacked him. And Vinny knew if he can get past him, all he has is Mats Hummels and one-on-one, I'm sorry, Hummels, 9 times out of 10, you're going to lose. Obviously, we saw him have a big tackle in the first half, and it was almost like that was the moment that Vinny was like, all right, I guess it's time to play now. And the game flipped on its head, and you saw what Real Madrid could really do. And, you know, I jokingly said Danny Carvajal was the shortest person to ever score a header. Obviously, Leo Messi has still scored a header in a Champions League game, so he gets that nod still. But Danny Carvajal, how do you leave this guy unmarked on the front post, considering he has been attacking and destroying your team all game to the point where they were pushing Rodrigo to the other side of the field away from Carvajal just to give Carvajal more of an opportunity to attack down the right wing? Like, how is that the guy you leave open? I'll never understand, but you know, it is what it is. And he got open. He scored the goal that matters. And then Vinny with the second was just, that was an absolutely impressive goal. Vinny's goal was just magical, to the point where you're just left in awe of, like you mentioned earlier in the show, him potentially being a Ballon d'Or winner here. Should be have that conversation at the very least. Should at least be in the top 4. Should probably be in the top 2, and he shouldn't be number 2. And you know, it's one of those situations where you just see how impressive he's been all season. When, as you mentioned, they started this season with not knowing who the striker was, and to the point where Carlo Ancelotti straight up said, I don't know, we'll figure it out. Like, and then,
I mean, ESPN didn't even know who was the striker. I know that we saw mostly, at least they labeled it the 4-4-2 diamond. At least that's what we saw. But then it literally looked like a 4-3-3 formation, and Bellingham was playing the striker role.
Yeah, it really ends up being that way. And then on defense, like when they lost the ball, he'd play left mid. Like, it's one of those situations where that team is so dynamic, moving. And I talked about this earlier, just how fluid they are offensively. It's what they wanted to be when they brought in Ronaldo, Kaká, and Ozil at the same time, but they couldn't be like that fluidity didn't really work as well. What they have up front with those front three, and then imagine what they're going to bring next year when you add Mbappe into this. Those front three are just so fluid and dynamic in their ability. Bellingham has a great judge of pace as far as how the game should flow. And so he knows when to be that late runner into the box, when to be the first runner into the box, when to run off the striker, especially Vinny. Him and Vinny have a great connection, and Vinny's just always attacking all the time. Sadly, Rodrigo wasn't really involved in this game as much as he could have been. And it's not because he didn't get the opportunity, he was playing bad or anything. It was just like, he didn't need to be great because you had Carvajal out here just torching down the sideline every single opportunity. Honestly, this might be the most effective I've ever seen Carvajal attacking in his entire career. And that's saying something because he's really been a good attacker at times. But I think this has been like his standout performance.
Definitely. I definitely agree with that. And, you mentioned the what Real Madrid has built. Because if you just thinking about what this Real Madrid team is going to look like, at least for next year, you have Vinicius Jr., who they signed when he was 16 years old. Rodrigo, another player that they signed at a very young age. Valverde, no one knew who the fuck this kid was.
I love Valverde.
Plays in the Paraguayan league, also my adopted son. Is going to be the new number 8 for Real Madrid. Toni Kroos has donned him the next number 8 for Real Madrid. So very proud of my adopted son. Also very proud of my other adopted son, Rodrigo. But he goes to Man City. Three guys that aren't big marquee signings. Like these guys, I mean, there was hype behind Vinicius Jr. Rodrigo, there was some excitement. Some people were familiar, especially if you know Brazilian football. If you told me you watch Benetol in the Uruguayan League, I'm gonna just say you're a liar because where's that channel? Because I have no idea where that channel's at.
Where's the 3 a.m. replay on BN Sports? I missed that one as well.
But these were guys that were not even we didn't even know if they were going to be good. Some people were scared that Vinicius Jr. was just going to be another Odegaard, which I mean that also aged poorly because now look where Odegaard's at now. But
pump those brakes, guys.
But there was the concerns like, I don't know, we don't really hit really well with these young players. But all three of them came from just development. These guys were developed to where they are now with Real Madrid. And I mean, Luka Modric, a signing that many thought was the dumbest signing in Real Madrid's history. And look where he's at now. Toni Kroos, I will say, I did criticize the signing of Toni Kroos, not because it was Toni Kroos. I know Toni Kroos is a very quality player. I criticized it because I was going to lose Xabi Alonso. And I was a real big Xabi Alonso fan with Real Madrid. When he was and also with Liverpool, when he was with Liverpool as well.
We're all big Xabi Alonso fans in this situation.
So yeah, so like it also, if anything from that 2014 World Cup, if there was anyone that I thought Real Madrid was stupid for signing, was James Rodriguez, because he literally was just someone that benefited from having a good World Cup, because let's be honest, he didn't really do much after that, but. Internationally, he's done fairly well. I'm just me being a little bit of a hater of him. But yeah, so Real Madrid, most of these guys, and now they're adding, the big signings, right? Going getting Mbappe, getting Jude Bellingham.
Endrick is coming next year. I forgot Endrick.
Yeah, young up and coming player.
Another Brazilian to add to their mix of Brazilians up front.
Honestly, this team doesn't even have many Spanish players on the starting lineup. This is like Real Madrid benefits no one in the Spanish team.
It's wild.
If anything, they support France and Brazil.
France, Brazil, a couple African nations, and then
and Rudiger. No, you can't forget about Rudiger.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, a couple of their players have come out of the African or the French countries out of Africa. So
Yeah. So, and I mean, Tchouaméni and Camavinga, I feel like there was some hype from obviously still very young players, but a lot of hype was definitely coming from those two from Ligue 1, and now look where they are now. Camavinga becoming like a Swiss Army knife for Carlo Ancelotti. Just plug him anywhere in the lineup and he'll play it. Tchouaméni was playing center back at one point this year.
I don't get that, and don't forget you still have David Alaba coming back from injury. Like, there's a lot of impressive players that are still there that you don't have to worry about leaving. Obviously, with Toni Kroos leaving, I think the average age of this team drops by a good 10 years. At least the starting lineup next year will drop by a good 10 years of average age when you no longer have a 36-year-old, a 35-year-old, and a 37-year-old in your starting lineup, and they're all replaced by like 24, 25-year-olds. That's going to be impressive. And yet they stay pretty same quality, like pretty equivalent quality across the board with these guys. It's kind of wild to think about.
Yeah, that's very true. But obviously Real Madrid wins it again. Toni Kroos, like I said, Toni Kroos, Dani Carvajal, Luka Modric, and Nacho Fernandez are now 6 players. I mean, now have won 6 Champions Leagues, matching a Real Madrid legend. I can't remember the name off the top of my head.
It's his last name is Enzo.
Oh, Enzo.
I can't think of his first name.
But yeah, so now 6 Champions League titles. So legendary careers for these guys. Once again, Luka Modric, who everyone claimed was going to be the worst signing in Real Madrid's history. The dude's literally the number 10 and clearly is either is the fountain of youth or has it. And then Toni Kroos, just a proper send-off. Like, probably, I feel like more athletes need to start doing this where, like, it's not that I can keep playing. I just want to stop playing.
Yeah.
And that's what Toni Kroos did. He's like, I don't want to, like, I think for him it was, I really don't need to play anywhere else now. Like, what is there? Like, I'm a World Cup champion. I'm a multiple Champions League winner. I've played plenty of matches in the Bundesliga and Real Madrid. I don't need to go play in the Premier League.
I don't need to go to America or Turkey
or Saudi Arabia.
Yeah. By the way, it's Paco Gento was the player, not Enzo. My bad.
Oh, okay, Paco. Yeah. So I mean, I feel like more athletes in general, like not even in soccer, but like everywhere else in general. Like, there's nothing wrong with just ending it at a high point.
Michael Jordan, the first time.
Yeah.
Not Michael Jordan the second time.
Maybe Tom Brady should have thought about that,
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that's a consideration. But
instead of having to go on Netflix and being called, a lot of very homophobic things.
Yeah, that was a very interesting roast. But it's funny because like while Toni Kroos called it early, you do have some athletes like Barry Sanders who called a career early when you probably still could have played a few years. Then you have Luka Modric, who probably should have called a career earlier in his career based off the trajectory he was on. And then Fountain of Youth when he gets to Madrid and it's like, oh, wait, by the way, I am better than I've ever been before. And I'm 30 plus years old the entire time. So it's kind of wild that it ends up that way. But I agree. I do think some players, before they go on that decline, definitely should consider that. I think Frank Lampard was one of those that probably should have just like at the end of his Chelsea time just said, I'm done. I wouldn't say the same for Stevie. I think what he did with the Galaxy was fine. Andrea Pirlo, I think, probably should have called it after before leaving AC. Gianluigi Buffon probably needs to call that a career before leaving Juventus to go to PSG. That was not a good idea.
And then went back to Juventus.
Yeah, then went back and just looked.
And then went to Palmero.
Yeah.
So what an interesting journey that has been.
I would have liked to. I do like to see players just kind of go out when it's their time. Obviously, just call it a career.
I mean, at this point right now, Toni Kroos has nothing left to prove in his career, and I mean, I will miss the old man yells at cloud moments that he provided. But he is such a quality player. Like, I mean, free kicks automatic, corners automatic, just like the true definition of what a number 8's supposed to look like. It was Toni Kroos, like just knowing where everyone needed to be, knowing how to put the right ball in the right spot for the player that needed. Him and Vinicius, bro, they connected so well. He's the last of a dying breed, I think, of midfielders. Thiago is probably definitely the other resemblance of that. It's just guys that just know where to put the ball at it. Very, very few know how to do it as well as those guys. I mean, Phil Foden, I do say will probably be that next kind of midfielder when he gets to play midfield. Whenever that happens. Pedri has the potential of that. But I mean, it's just if you want to figure out how to be a solid midfielder, go watch Toni Kroos highlights. Just learn from that guy because that guy knows how to do it. Don't look at his X account because I will say it was kind of hilarious to him post, "Oh, look, I'm relevant." At least I'm trending now.
He's the meme on X, honestly.
Yes.
I wonder how much his Adidas shoe deal.
The man is so old school that he did not. He refused to switch out of the cleats. Like he told Adidas, "Y'all better figure it out."
It has been a decade since those boots were made. A decade since those boots were made last. And this man has said, "Nah, I'm not going to change him. Adidas, you're going to have to keep making my boots if you want me to keep being a part of your brand. Or I'm not signing with anybody else, and I'm going to take over the Adidas logo, and then I'm going to start putting tape all over it to fix it." Like, that was what he told them, and they were just like, yeah, we'll source all this material for you every year for only your shoe. Like, how wild of a story is that? That's next level. Like,
Toni Kroos is definitely the guy that like went to Olive Garden one time and was like, "I like it here. This is where I want to go eat at every time I want to go out to eat." Like, he's probably the guy that eats the same like turkey sandwich every fucking day. Doesn't change too much in his routine. Has to watch Judge Judy at 3:00. Like this, that's what Toni Kroos is as a person.
Oh, guaranteed he has a go-to order at every single place that never changes. And the moment somebody changes their menu because they got a new chef or new cook, he's going to be like, no, that's not what I got last time. I want what I got last time. And if they say no, okay, goodbye. And
you
he'll
just
never
lost a valuable customer
again. You will never get that free 5,000 pound tip that he would deliver for you. Like, no, that's not happening anymore. So yeah, Toni Kroos is. I wouldn't be surprised if he still drives he's German, so a Volkswagen or Mercedes that he got in his early career.
I really love this diesel Volkswagen.
I still drive my Volkswagen bus I got as an academy player. No, you shouldn't drive that anymore.
Yeah, Toni Kroos, man, that's what he's gonna do after his career, bro. I would honestly say I don't think he's ever coming back to the game. No. I don't think he's gonna go the manager route, even though he has probably an amazing ball knowledge. I don't think that's maybe front office, if anything else. But I think him and Messi are probably the two guys where I'm like, when they're done with the game, they are just going to just maybe make an appearance here and there, and we're just like, "Oh wow, he grew a beard," kind of thing. Like nothing. Like I just don't see Toni Kroos wanting to coach or anything. He'd probably just be a family guy. I mean, I don't think there's a rush for him as far as funding goes. I'm sure he's very smart with his finances.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised to see him do like private workouts with guys that he's played with, like young guys. I could see like a young, talented German player coming up and a German coach reaching out to him who probably would have played with Toni Kroos at some point in time and said, "Hey, can you just teach him a little bit of what you do?" And they'd be like, "Oh, yeah, sure. Just I'll, fly him on down to my house and we'll get him taken care of." Like, I think he'd be that type of guy, but I don't think he's going to go out of his way to like host a bunch of camps to do all that extra stuff. I think anything he does, we'll not hear about it until some player talks about how he got helped by him in the offseason. And that's what helped change his game. Or he had a phone call with him randomly, because I was really concerned I was doing this. And then I called him and he was like, oh, yeah, do this, that. Like, I think that's what it'll be. He'll be like a mentor, but not really a coach per se.
Yeah. But obviously, congratulations, Real Madrid. But kind of looking on the other side, man, Borussia Dortmund. Took him 11 years to come back to the final. Are we expecting that to be the same case, or is there something that Dortmund can do to at least stay competitive? I mean, probably trying to retain Jadon Sancho might be the first step, because he definitely, I don't think he ever wants to go back to Manchester United.
Ooh.
And I know some people are going to say they won the FA Cup, but let's be honest, that year, if it wasn't for that FA Cup, there's nothing to boast about that season.
That is your Super Cup equivalent.
At least in their context.
Yeah. I mean, for Dortmund, I don't know if there's a lot you could do to get back to this position. You kind of captured lightning in a bottle here. Just based off of your entire run. Don't get me wrong. You're going to be back there next year, most likely. And I think you will be back there. I will think they will be back there next year for sure. But I have concerns, right? I think we all do. Aging players. What are you going to do to replace them? And then on top of that, you're going to lose some guys. I don't think there's any doubt that maybe Adeyemi gets an offer this offseason to go somewhere. I think Nicholas Fulkrug, does he sit around for another year there? Can you hold on to Jadon Sancho? I don't know if that's possible. You mentioned Haller. You mentioned there's also their right back whose name I still cannot remember. I think Nicolas Soule is still there. Does he end up moving on? Like, there's a lot of different options, but if they can keep it together, add in the right pieces, not lose their head coach, I think that plays a lot into it. But they also have to figure out what they're doing in the domestic situation, because now that you had Bayern upset this year and finished third, Bayern's coming back next year with a vengeance. So you have to do the same because you're Dortmund. You are number 2 in the Bundesliga. You've always been number 2. You need to figure out a way to become 1B in that option and not just 2. Mm-hmm. And I think that's maybe the priority they need to take. As much as I would love to see him back in the Champions League final next year, I think they need to be concerned with the domestic league first, because right now you're falling too far behind there to continue worrying about Champions League long term. And I think that's, for me, they always talk about coaches needing to maintain a balance between European focus versus domestic league focus. And some of the best coaches can do it. I think there's a situation where you just need to put focus on one. You should not put focus on both. And I think the best opportunity for them is to focus domestically. Despite all the funds that come with the big European knockout stage round, if you win a title in Germany, you keep German players at your team and you don't lose them to Munich no matter what. If you win a Champions League, you lose half your team to Bayern.
No, you're right. And
that's tough.
I mean, their manager, a lot of criticism was being thrown at it to him. Not being able to handle Gio Reyna, a player that hopefully is coming back to Borussia Dortmund after a terrible failed experiment at Nottingham Forest.
Awful.
But, their manager, Tejtic, I think his name is.
Yeah.
I would say if it wasn't for this run in the Champions League, would he have kept his job? Because the only reason why they're in Champions League right now is because Bundesliga was granted an additional Champions League spot. And it was only because the semifinalists, Bayern Munich was automatically in the Champions League. PSG was already going to be in the Champions League. I mean, Real Madrid automatically in the Champions League. So technically the Champions League winner was going to be in the Champions League anyways. And Borussia Dortmund was the only team that was not in a secure Champions League position. So obviously Bundesliga was granted an additional spot for Champions League. And that's why Borussia Dortmund, who was literally in 5th place, gets that final Champions League spot. So if it wasn't off of a technicality, Borussia Dortmund wouldn't even be going back to Champions League, unless they would have won the Champions League final. And I mean, like I said, Tejtic, there was a lot of criticism coming from him this season. Even though, he returned to Borussia Dortmund, because remember, he left Borussia Dortmund for a while. I believe Rose was the one that took over from Mönchengladbach, and then, Tejtic took over the club again. But, and I mean, you can look at that Champions League final. I feel like the Adeyemi substitution was not the right decision when he subbed him out. And I get it to bring in Marco Reus, but I feel like there was probably another person to swap out. Maybe take Julian Brent out of the match. I felt like he wasn't really much of a factor in the Champions League final.
Not in the second half for sure.
Yeah, especially in the second half. But Adeyemi, who I felt was the biggest X factor for Borussia Dortmund, who was the one that was able to get these runs going. I mean, if it wasn't for just, I guess, like a poor second chance, another opportunity that Borussia Dortmund could have scored a goal on in the first half with that Fulcrum second chancer that he got from Adeyemi's shot. But I don't know. I felt like it was wrong that Adeyemi was taken out of the game. I understand for the fact that it's Marco Reus, you wanted to come out and play his final match, but I just don't think Adeyemi should have been taken out. I think he still had a lot left in the tank.
Yeah, I think it takes a lot, right, for a coach to not make a change when you're losing. Like it takes a lot for a coach to be like, I'm not going to go with that plan change. And I don't think Terzic is at that point. Obviously, the guy knows the players at Dortmund, especially. He was there in their youth setup under Klopp. He was interim in 2001. Probably should have been there as a head coach in 21 to 22, but he just instead was a technical director. So be it. He knows these players. He knows all of them very well. And knowing that, I maybe there's something we don't know about what Adeyemi was dealing with, maybe physically, but it didn't look to me like he was ready to be pulled out. It looked to me like he had a lot left in the tank, and he was still attacking that left side. And especially when Carvajal was going forward, the best defense to that was having Adeyemi attacking that spot. And it pushed, when he was attacking that spot, it pushed Carvajal back, and that's why he couldn't get attacking for a majority of that end of the second half of the end of the first half type of situation. So the last 25 minutes of the first half, Carvajal wasn't really effective in that position because Adeyemi was just bolting down that line every single time they had the ball. And as a coach, there's a lot of belief that needs to be fed into you to do something like that, to be able to not make that change. And I do think, to your point, I think that should not have been done with Adeyemi. I think Julian Brandt was the obvious choice there. I'd even argue Nicholas Füllkrug in the second half could have been flipped a little earlier. I don't agree with this what was done. But beyond that, as I mentioned, domestic league, you can't struggle as much next year if you're Terzic. And I do agree. I think until December, he was pretty well on his way out the door at the end of the season. Because unlike Bayern, they're not a team that cuts ties in the middle of the season. But somehow, especially the Champions League, he figured it out, got to the knockout stage, and got them to where they are today. And that's why he will still have a job next year. But yeah, I mean, long term, I don't know what the solution is there, but it's shown that he can lead a team in Europe. And that is a selling point for a lot of teams looking for a manager. If you can lead a team through a European gauntlet like that, especially the German gauntlet, which is similar to the Premier League in a lot of ways, and similar to in La Liga in the amount of games they play in such a short time. And if you can do that successfully and lead a team in one of the two competitions to some kind of final, you're looked at a lot more, I guess, impressive than if it was a regular manager. So yeah, I think had it just been based on his domestic season, no, he's not there anymore. But because of the Champions League success, he gets to figure out what to do in the domestic league next year. And he'll get the full year out of it, but I don't think that I expect to see him there in the finals next year, but I do expect some domestic league success from him if he can figure it out.
No, yeah, I agree. But that's it for the European competitions. Obviously, thank you, Kelcey, for coming on and helping talk some footy. Obviously, it's always great to have you on. But here's your time, man. Tell the good people where they can find you.
Yeah, you can check myself and my co-host DJ out every Wednesday night, 8 p.m. Eastern time, live on our Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, and Instagram account. And then live video, a replayed video will be put up on our YouTube page on Thursday And then same goes for audio, first thing in the morning, 8 a.m. Eastern time. Thursday morning, you can check it all out there. Be sure to subscribe or follow us on any one of our social medias at High-Low Sports or at high_low_sports on X. And other than that, yeah, we like to talk all sports. So unfortunately, don't get to talk a lot of soccer on my show, but I do love every time I get to come over and be another member of the insert name FC family. So it's always fun for me.
Always, Kelcey. So, all right. Thank you for coming on. We're going to go ahead and segue on to Players of the Week, but just go ahead and go right into that.
All right, First of all, before I get to Players of the Week, I want to thank Kelcey Coyne for coming on. Make sure you guys check out High-Low Sports. Great podcast. They're over at BellyUpSports, so check them out over there, High-Low Sports. Him and DJ, great duo. Lots of fun to hear those guys talk. They know their sports. Obviously, it's more American sports focused, so basketball, football, American football, and baseball and other sports like that. That's what you'll be hearing over there on High-Low Sports. So go ahead and check them out. But all right, Players of the Week. Players of the Week is brought to you by SeatGeek. SeatGeek is a phenomenal ticketing site app, depending on how you use it. It is a great way to get tickets to sporting events, theater tickets, comedy shows, concerts, whatever you need that doesn't involve a movie theater. SeatGeek probably has it there for you, man. So go ahead and check them out, man. SeatGeek.com. Their grading system is very simple. If it is red, that means that is not a great deal. You're going to find something better on this app. And if it's green, that means this deal is perfect. It's awesome. You're going to enjoy these seats thoroughly with the price that's given to you. And if you guys want this to be even better, if you guys go ahead and use the code BellyUpSports on your first purchase at SeatGeek.com, you will save $20 off your first purchase. So go ahead and check them out. SeatGeek.com, use the code BellyUpSports. Save yourself $20 off your first purchase. All right, Edwards player of the week is Salomon Rondon, who scored 2 goals in Pachuca's 3-0 victory against Columbus Crew to win the CONCACAF Champions Cup. So that's what happened. Columbus Crew. We were hoping something good was going to happen with Columbus. I still believe in Wilfred Nancy, but Pachuca. Very solid performance, very solid team. Salomon Rondon, if you guys don't remember, used to play in the Premier League as well. So congratulations to him. Solid performance. Usually what I expect from him and a club like Pachuca. Really good team. Obviously, have my respect for how they exited in the Liga MX playoffs from having to play 4 matches basically in a span of 2 weeks. So probably more matches, to be honest. But yeah, so my respects are obviously over there with Rondon and Pachuca. And my player of the week is Dani Carvajal, who scored the winning goal in Real Madrid's 2-0 victory for Borussia Dortmund to secure their 15th Champions League title. I would have loved to give it to Vinicius Jr., but I mean, let's be honest, Dani Carvajal, he put the winner. I know I was going to try to give it to Toni Kroos as well, but I mean, Carvajal, man, also a very big milestone that he achieved, being 6 starts in Champions League to win the Champions League. So not only a 6-time Champions League winner, but also has started in every single match. So congratulations to Dani Carvajal. Great player, hard worker player. All right, games to watch this weekend. We have a lot of international matches going on here, qualifiers for the World Cup, and just international friendlies in general. So we have Germany versus Greece, Poland versus Ukraine, Peru versus Paraguay, Sweden versus Serbia, Switzerland versus Austria, Portugal versus Croatia, USA versus Colombia, Mexico versus Brazil, France versus Canada, Argentina versus Ecuador, and St. Vincent and the Grenadines taking on El Salvador. I'll also shout out to the Mexico and Brazil is actually going to be played here in Texas, but not in Houston, not in Dallas, not in San Antonio. It is going to be, not in Austin, it's going to be played in College Station, Texas, home of that Colt Texas A&M in Kyle Field. It's really cool. I was definitely contemplating on buying some tickets to go to that game, but one, I just didn't want to go in general. That's the main reason, but also because like I've been asking for a lot of days off at my job, and I've been requesting specific days off. I don't think it's been necessarily like a nuisance or anything like that, but I am going to El Salvador next week, so kind of pick and choose your battles. I am gonna make sure I'm getting my day off to go see Messi. Inter Miami's gonna be playing Tigres, so I have those tickets for that match. So that I'm kind of like, try to be as abiding as I can be for right now. But yeah, those matches, like I said, a lot of international friendlies, obviously preparation for the Euro, preparation for Copa America, and then we also have qualifiers for the World Cup that's kind of kicking off already for 2026. So lots of stuff to be excited about this weekend. So go ahead and check it out. International soccer is on the cusp, so I can't wait for that. But yeah, so we'll go ahead and take a break, and then we'll go right into recapping this, I'm sure, very long episode already as it is. So go ahead and stay tuned.
Hey everyone, it's Ryan from No Credentials Required to talk to you about one of our newest partners at BellyUpSports, SeatGeek. Yeah, live sports is great on television, but the feeling of being at the arena is a priceless experience. That's why our friends at SeatGeek are there to help you find the best tickets at the best prices. Not only can you get tickets to sporting events, but you can also get tickets to concerts, comedy shows, musicals, and more. Search for your desired event now at SeatGeek.com, enter promo code BellyUpSports at checkout, and you save $20 off your first purchase. SeatGeek. Life's an event. We have the tickets.
All right, guys, I want to thank Kelcey Coin of High Low Sports for coming on, man. Make sure you guys check out High Low Sports. Another great member of the BellyUpSports family, so go ahead and check them out. Lots of great discussions over there. Obviously more American sports focused, so football, baseball, basketball. Not a lot of soccer, but it is, if you're interested in the other sports discussions, High Low Sports is what I highly recommend. And shout out to BellyUpSports, man. Check them out, BellyUpSports.com. Lots of articles being written constantly, man. Definitely worth a read. Especially if you want to get to know, man. Stanley Cup playoffs, NBA finals. All this is going on right now, especially here in American sports. Lots of things being covered, man. NASCAR, ton of sports. You'll see some soccer articles written as well. So go ahead and check out BellyUpSports.com. Follow them on Instagram and the X at BellyUpMedia and at BellyUpSports as well. Shout out to GolzTV. Lots of awesome stuff to be available on that platform. We're really excited that we're able to offer Insert Name FC's content over there at GolzTV, man. It's always fun to be on there with Jose and them. You'll see me on some of their original programming like Wake Up MLS. So definitely go ahead and check them out, man. Golz.tv is the site. Take full advantage right now, man. It is free to join GolzTV. So obviously the plan is to grow and eventually make this a very profitable venture. So enjoy it while you can, because I do believe that this is going to grow. Check them out on Instagram at golz.tv and on the X at golz_TV. So make sure you guys check that out. And of course, man, if you guys like the intros and outros to these podcasts, then you gotta appreciate the man, the myth, the legend, Roosevelt Spencer. Check him out on Instagram at that guy dope. If you guys need some beat work done, we highly recommend Spencer, man. He does an amazing and phenomenal job, man. So there is that. Before I wrap this show up, some housekeeping, just so you guys know what to expect. Like I said, probably plenty of times now that I will be in El Salvador. On the 14th, I'm leaving to El Salvador. So, yeah. So, next week's episode is going to have Copa America preview and preview the Euro. So, it's going to be a longer episode. At least that's what the goal is going to be for me, is to make that a very long episode, being that I will not be available the following week, and I would probably say the next week as well, being that I would have just came back from El Salvador. So I would say that we're going to go 2 weeks without contents. I honestly might say 3 weeks. I might take a 3-week break because of the fact that 4th of July. So my expectation, at least, to come back onto the podcast would be to have like a new episode on the 12th. So yeah, so basically I'm taking 3 weeks off for the podcast, and so there's the plan. So and I know Euro and Copa America will be going on at that time. I'm going to look to plan accordingly, because I'm gonna see maybe try to whenever the knockout round starts. So that's basically when I'll once I look more into the schedule for both those tournaments, I'll reassess what I meant, what I was planning on, because I just want to take a break just for a little bit. Obviously, covering this sport it's a long sport. It takes a very long time, lots of tournaments happening, and obviously we have 2 huge tournaments coming on this summer with the Euro and Copa America, and I definitely would love to cover it. But I mean, the way we end up covering these tournaments, we don't really cover the group stages anyways, like in depth. Like, we'll talk about the group matches, and then once we get to the quarterfinals, we'll start actually going more in depth with it. But so that being said, man, like, I think that's gonna be the plan. Like I said, it might change. Next episode, you'll have a more definite answer. But essentially, I'm gonna take a break. Probably won't come back till after the group stages are done, and do an episode then. Just because then at that point there is something to very very much be discussed on it. But obviously, I'm also human. I need to take some sort of break. So there is also that. But I mean, all in all, man, I've enjoyed the support, man. YouTube is growing exponentially. We're already at 7,000 subscribers. Our podcast numbers have been really exciting to look at as well. So obviously, none of this can be done without you guys, the listeners. So I appreciate that. I appreciate the love. I appreciate all the love that's been given on social media as well, man. So definitely, we're still growing. We're not where I want to be yet. And that's going to take time. So I can't wait for it. I can't wait to continue to grow with you guys and continue growing with everybody that I'm around, BellyUpSports and GolzTV. So thank you for listening to episode 178. Catch us next week for episode 179, where we will be previewing the 2024 Copa America and the 2024 Euro. So a lot to be discussed in that episode. Trying to make that a longer episode so you can digest it probably a little bit better. And of course, when it's time to drop those videos, we'll do it accordingly to when the tournament would start. So just so you guys know, that's still going to be a thing. So thank you so much for listening. Catch you next week. Take care, guys.